Daniel Brooks stood frozen in the elementary school hallway, his daughter's backpack slipping from his shoulder. The woman turning toward him shouldn't exist. Not here, not now, not ever again. Olivia Hayes. 10 years vanished like smoke, and suddenly she was standing 15 feet away, her expensive heels clicking against linoleum that had witnessed 1,000 ordinary parent-teacher nights. But there was nothing ordinary about this. His heart hammered against his ribs as their eyes met, and in that single suspended moment, every carefully constructed wall he'd built around his life began to crack. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button. I want to see how far this story travels. Now settle in, because what happens next will change everything Daniel thought he knew about love, loss, and the truth that was kept from him for a decade. The fluorescent lights of Jefferson Elementary School hummed their familiar tune as Daniel Brooks rushed through the main entrance at 6:47 p.m., 13 minutes late for parent-teacher conferences. His shirt was still damp from the sink disaster at the construction site, and he'd driven across town with his hard hat wedged between the passenger seat and door because there'd been no time to drop it at home. Single fatherhood didn't come with a pause button. Sorry, he muttered to no one in particular, his work boots squeaking against the polished floor as he speed-walked toward the third-grade wing. His daughter Emma's classroom was at the end of the hall, and he could already imagine Mrs. Peterson's politely strained smile as he apologized for his tardiness. Again. Daniel had become intimately familiar with that smile over the past 3 years. The one that said, "I understand you're doing your best," but it was the same smile the PTA moms gave him when he showed up to bake sales with store-bought cookies, or when Emma arrived at field trips wearing mismatched socks because mornings were a battlefield he didn't always win. He was rounding the corner past the art room when he saw her. The world didn't stop. It would have been easier if it had. Instead, everything sharpened into hyper-real focus. The distant sound of Mrs. Chen discussing multiplication tables in room 304, the smell of industrial floor cleaner mixed with children's paint, the way the overhead lights cast shadows across the bulletin board displaying third-grade self-portraits, and Olivia Hayes standing beside the water fountain, studying something on her phone. Daniel's feet forgot how to move. His lungs forgot how to expand. Every molecule in his body staged a simultaneous revolt against the impossible reality unfolding before him. 10 years. 10 years of silence, of unanswered questions, of waking up in the middle of the night wondering what he'd done wrong. 10 years of building a life on the rubble of the one she'd demolished when she left. She looked up. Their eyes met, and Daniel watched the color drain from her face. Her phone nearly slipped from her hand. For 3 suspended heartbeats, they stared at each other across 20 feet of elementary school hallway, and Daniel felt every carefully constructed defense he'd built crumble like ancient walls facing a flood. Daniel. His name left her lips barely above a whisper, but he heard it clearly. He'd always been able to hear her voice through any crowd, across any distance. "What are you doing here?" The words came out rougher than he intended, his throat tight. Olivia straightened, and he watched her slide into composure like someone putting on armor. The momentary vulnerability vanished, replaced by the poised exterior of someone used to controlling boardrooms and business deals. She was wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than his truck payment, her dark hair pulled back in a way that highlighted the elegant lines of her face. She looked simultaneously exactly as he remembered, and completely transformed. "I'm here for parent-teacher night," she said, her voice steadier now. "My daughter is in Mrs. Peterson's class." The hallway tilted slightly. "Your daughter?" "Yes." Something flickered in her eyes. Defensiveness, perhaps, or challenge. "Sophia, she's 8. 8 years old." Daniel's mind performed rapid calculations even as his heart continued its chaotic rhythm. 8 years meant Olivia had gotten pregnant within 2 years of leaving him, had moved on, built a life, had a child. All while he'd been stuck in the aftermath of their ending, trying to understand what had gone wrong. "I didn't know you were back in town," he managed. "I moved here 6 months ago. New position." Of course. Olivia had always been ambitious, always climbing toward something bigger. He remembered late nights when they were 22, her talking about her dreams while they shared cheap takeout in his apartment. She'd wanted to change the world. He'd wanted to build things with his hands and come home to her every night. Funny how neither of them had gotten exactly what they wanted. Daniel Brooks? A woman's voice cut through the tension. Mrs. Peterson stood in her classroom doorway, peering down the hall. I'm ready for you now. I'll be right there, Daniel called back, not taking his eyes off Olivia. I have my appointment in 10 minutes, Olivia said quietly. We should… Yeah. Daniel stepped back, creating more distance between them. We should. He turned toward Mrs. Peterson's classroom, feeling Olivia's gaze on his back like a physical weight. His hands were shaking slightly as he walked, and he shoved them into his pockets, hoping his daughter's teacher wouldn't notice that her father was currently experiencing an emotional earthquake. Mrs. Peterson was a kindly woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a beaded chain and a classroom that smelled like crayons and possibility. Mr. Brooks, please, have a seat. She gestured to a child-sized chair beside her desk. How are you this evening? Fine, Daniel lied, folding his 6-foot frame into the tiny chair. Sorry I'm late, sight ran over. No apology necessary. I know you work hard. Mrs. Peterson pulled out a folder with Emma's name on it. And speaking of hard work, your daughter is absolutely thriving this year. Despite everything churning inside him, Daniel felt a spark of pride. Really? Really? Mrs. Peterson opened the folder, revealing Emma's recent assignments. Her reading comprehension has improved dramatically, and she's become quite the little mathematician. But more than that, she's showing real leadership qualities. Just yesterday, she helped a new student who was struggling with long division, completely on her own initiative. Daniel studied the papers, seeing his daughter's careful handwriting, her colorful drawings in the margins. Emma was his entire world, had been since the moment the hospital placed her in his arms 3 years ago, when his ex-girlfriend Sarah had decided motherhood wasn't for her and left town. Just like Olivia had left, though Sarah's departure had been less surprising. They'd been together only 6 months, a relationship born from loneliness rather than love, and her pregnancy had been accidental. Daniel had stepped up because that's what you did. You didn't abandon the people who needed you, unlike some people. Mr. Brooks? He snapped back to attention. Sorry, yes, Emma's been working really hard on her math. Mrs. Peterson smiled. It shows. I wanted to talk to you about possibly moving her into the advanced reading group. She's reading at a 5th grade level. They spent the next 15 minutes discussing Emma's progress, her social development, her upcoming projects. Daniel tried to focus, tried to be present for this conversation about his daughter's education, but his awareness kept drifting to the hallway. Was Olivia still out there? What was her daughter like? Did Sophia know her mother had once been engaged to someone else? Had promised forever to a man she'd left without explanation? There is one thing, Mrs. Peterson said, drawing Daniel's attention back. Emma's been asking a lot of questions about her mother lately. Daniel's stomach tightened. What kind of questions? Where she is, why she left, if she'll come back? I think it's developmentally normal. Many children her age start grappling with family structure. But I wanted you to be aware. She brought it up during our family tree project. Right. Daniel rubbed his face, suddenly exhausted. I'll talk to her about it. Thank you for letting me know. You're doing a wonderful job with her, Mr. Brooks. Single parenting is never easy, but Emma is a happy, well-adjusted child. That's a testament to you. The words should have comforted him, but instead they highlighted the fundamental loneliness of his life. He was 32 years old, raising a daughter alone, working construction to pay the bills, and the only woman he'd ever truly loved had just reappeared in his life like a ghost made flesh. When he emerged from the classroom 20 minutes later, the hallway was emptier. Only a few parents remained, chatting in small clusters. Olivia stood near the main entrance, scrolling through her phone, and Daniel's first instinct was to take the back exit to avoid another encounter. But he was tired of running from things. He walked toward her, his boots announcing his approach. She looked up, and for a moment her professional mask slipped again. How did it go? She asked. Good. Emma's doing well. He stopped a careful distance away. You? Sophia's adjusting nicely. She was nervous about the move, but Mrs. Peterson says she's making friends. They stood in awkward silence, two people who once knew each other's every thought, now strangers navigating conversational landmines. Look, Olivia, Daniel, They both stopped. Daniel gestured for her to continue. I just want to say… She paused, choosing her words carefully. I know this is strange, running into each other like this. Strange, Daniel almost laughed. That's one word for it. Her eyes flashed with something, hurt perhaps, or anger. What do you want me to say? I don't want you to say anything. You made your position pretty clear 10 years ago when you disappeared without a word. That's not fair. Fair? Now Daniel did laugh, the sound bitter. You want to talk about fair? We were engaged, Olivia. We had wedding invitations picked out. I came home one day and you were gone. Your phone disconnected, your apartment empty, your job quit. You vanished like you'd never existed. Two passing parents glanced their way, and Olivia lowered her voice. This isn't the place for this conversation. Then where is? Because I spent 2 years trying to have this conversation, and you made sure it was impossible. Olivia's jaw tightened. You don't understand. You're right. I don't. That's the problem. The main entrance doors opened, and a small girl with dark curls came running in, followed by an older woman who was presumably her grandmother. Mom, Grandma bought me a new book. Daniel watched Olivia's face transform as she knelt to greet her daughter. The Ice Queen melted, replaced by genuine warmth and love. That's wonderful, sweetheart. What book? It's about a girl who solves mysteries with her dog. The child, Sophia, was breathless with excitement, her eyes shining. She glanced at Daniel curiously. Who's that? This is an old friend, Olivia said carefully. Mr. Brooks. Hi, Mr. Brooks. Sophia waved enthusiastically. Hi, Sophia. Daniel managed a smile despite the chaos in his chest. The girl was beautiful, with her mother's eyes and smile. She looked happy, loved, secure in her world. Sophia, why don't you go with Grandma to the car? I'll be right there. The older woman, who had been watching the exchange with keen interest, took Sophia's hand. Come on, honey. Let's let your mother finish her conversation. After they left, Olivia turned back to Daniel. Look, I know you have questions. Questions? Daniel shook his head. That doesn't even begin to cover it. I can't do this right now. I have Sophia, and, of course, you have a life to get back to. I get it. He started to walk away, then stopped. Just tell me one thing. Did you ever love me? Or was all of it a lie? Olivia's composure finally shattered. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. How can you even ask me that? Because you made it pretty easy to wonder, Olivia. People don't abandon the people they love without a damn good reason. She stopped, seeming to wrestle with something. It wasn't about loving you. It was never about that. Then what was it about? She looked away. I can't explain it to you in a school hallway. Then where? When? Olivia pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she typed. Give me your number. I'll call you. Like you called me 10 years ago? Daniel, please. The vulnerability in her voice cut through his anger. I know I don't deserve your trust, but I'm asking anyway. Give me a chance to explain. He recited his number, watching her save it in her contacts. The intimacy of the gesture felt wrong. They'd once shared everything, and now they were exchanging phone numbers like business acquaintances. I'll call you tomorrow, she said quietly. Will you? Their eyes met, and for a moment Daniel saw past the CEO exterior to the girl he'd loved. The one who used to steal his hoodies and fall asleep during movies, who'd once told him she wanted to build a life with him that mattered. I will, she said. I promise. Daniel wanted to tell her that her promises meant nothing, that she'd broken the most important one she'd ever made to him. But his daughter was waiting at home with the babysitter, and he was too emotionally drained for more confrontation. Goodbye, Olivia. He walked to his truck in the parking lot, his hand shaking as he fumbled with the keys. Inside the cab, surrounded by Emma's car seat, scattered construction blueprints, and the accumulated debris of single fatherhood, Daniel finally let himself feel the full weight of what had just happened. Olivia was back. After 10 years of silence, 10 years of questions, 10 years of building a life on the ruins of the one they'd planned together, she was back. And apparently she had answers. Daniel started the truck and pulled out of the parking lot, watching Jefferson Elementary School disappear in his rearview mirror. The babysitter had texted that Emma was in bed, and he'd promised to bring her ice cream tomorrow to make up for missing their bedtime routine. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for listening. Tomorrow. I promise. O'Daniel stared at the message for a long moment before deleting it. Then he drove home through streets that suddenly felt unfamiliar, as if the past had reached forward and rearranged his present. Inside his small house, he paid the babysitter and checked on Emma. She was asleep, curled around her favorite stuffed elephant, her nightlight casting gentle shadows across her room. Daniel stood in the doorway watching her breathe and felt the familiar fierce protectiveness that fatherhood had awoken in him. This was his life now. This mattered. Emma mattered. Whatever Olivia had to say, whatever explanation she offered, they couldn't change the fundamental truth. She had chosen to leave, and he had chosen to stay, to build something real from the wreckage. But as Daniel lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, he couldn't stop his mind from returning to that moment in the hallway. The shock in Olivia's eyes, the tremor in her hands, the way she'd looked at him like seeing something precious she'd lost and never expected to find again. It wasn't about loving you, she'd said. It was never about that. Then what? What could possibly have been important enough to make her vanish without a trace? What truth had she been carrying for 10 years that she couldn't share in a moment of confrontation? His phone sat on the nightstand, dark and silent. Tomorrow, she'd promised. Tomorrow she would call, and he would finally get the answers that had haunted him for a decade. Daniel closed his eyes, knowing sleep would be elusive. The past had walked back into his life tonight, wearing expensive shoes and carrying secrets. And despite his anger, despite the walls he'd built, despite everything he'd told himself about moving on, a small, stubborn part of his heart was still waiting for her explanation, still hoping, against all reason, that there was a truth that could make sense of the senseless, still wanting to believe that what they'd had was real, even though she'd made it disappear. The night stretched long and restless. In the room down the hall, Emma slept peacefully, unaware that her father's carefully ordered world had just been upended. Unaware that the woman in the expensive suit at parent-teacher night was a ghost from a life before Emma existed, before Daniel knew what it meant to love someone who depended on him completely. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tonight brought only questions and the strange, painful vertigo of having your past suddenly become your present. Daniel had survived heartbreak before. He'd survived Olivia leaving, survived Sarah abandoning Emma, survived countless moments when single fatherhood felt like too much to bear alone. He would survive this too. But as he finally drifted toward uneasy sleep, one thought circled endlessly through his mind. What if the truth she's been hiding is worse than not knowing? The next morning arrived too quickly. Emma bounced into Daniel's room at 6:30 a.m., full of 8-year-old energy and questions about breakfast. He made her favorite chocolate chip pancakes and listened to her chatter about the upcoming science fair and whether she could get a hamster, still no, and how her friend Madison had started wearing her hair in a new way. Normal. Everything was normal. Except Daniel kept checking his phone. "Dad, you're not even listening," Emma protested, syrup on her chin. "Sorry, sweetheart. What did you say?" "I asked if you liked Mrs. Peterson. She's really nice, right?" "She's great. She says you're doing amazing in school." Emma beamed. "Did she tell you about my book report? I got an A+. "She did. I'm so proud of you." Daniel ruffled her hair. "You're the smartest kid I know." "That's because you only know me and Uncle Jake's kids." Daniel laughed, despite the tension coiling in his gut. "Fair point." After dropping Emma at school, a painful 40-minute ordeal because she'd forgotten her library book and they'd had to turn around, Daniel headed to the construction site. His crew was already there, framing the second story of what would eventually be a boutique hotel downtown. "You look like hell," his foreman Jake observed, handing Daniel a hard hat. "Late night?" Something like that. Jake had been Daniel's best friend since high school, had stood beside him through every disaster and triumph. He knew about Olivia, knew what her disappearance had done to Daniel. "Want to talk about it?" "Not particularly." Daniel grabbed his tool belt. "Let's just build something." They worked in companionable silence for a while, the rhythm of construction soothing in its predictability. Measure, cut, nail, repeat. There was an honesty to building things. You put in the work, and something tangible emerged. Not like relationships, which could collapse without warning despite all the effort you invested. His phone rang at 11:47 a.m. Daniel was 40 feet up on scaffolding when he felt the vibration in his pocket. He climbed down, hands steadier than his heartbeat, and stepped away from the noise of power tools. Unknown number. He answered. Hello? Daniel, it's me. Olivia's voice sent him right back to last night's hallway confrontation. He leaned against his truck, watching his crew work. You said you'd call. I keep my promises. Eventually. A pause. Can we meet today? I'm working. Tonight, then, after you pick up Emma. The fact that she remembered his routine shouldn't have surprised him, but it did. How do you know my schedule? I don't. I'm just assuming you wouldn't leave an 8-year-old home alone after school. Her voice softened. We were both raised by single parents, remember? I know what that looks like. He did remember. Olivia's mother had worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat after her father left. It was one of the things that had bonded them, understanding what it meant to watch a parent sacrifice everything. There's a coffee shop on Maple Street, Daniel said. The Common Ground. Meet me there at 7:30. I'll be there. She hung up, and Daniel stared at his phone, wondering what he'd just agreed to. Jake approached, reading his expression with the ease of long friendship. That was her, wasn't it? How did you... Man, you've got the same look you had 10 years ago when you were checking your phone every 5 minutes, hoping she'd call. Jake crossed his arms. She's back? Her daughter's in Emma's class. We ran into each other at parent-teacher night. Jake whistled low. That's some cosmic joke right there. Tell me about it. You gonna be okay? Daniel looked up at the building taking shape, steel and wood and purpose. I don't know yet. Ask me tomorrow. The afternoon crawled by. Daniel worked on autopilot, his hands busy while his mind churned through scenarios. What could Olivia possibly tell him that would make sense of her disappearance? What truth could justify the silence? By the time he picked up Emma from school, his nerves were frayed. She chattered the entire drive home about her day, and he tried to focus on her words rather than the impending conversation. Dad, are you sick? Emma asked as he parked in their driveway. You're being really quiet. Just tired, sweetheart. How about pizza for dinner? Her face lit up. Can we get the one with extra cheese? Of course. He called Jake's wife, Michelle, who agreed to watch Emma for a couple of hours. Hot date? Michelle teased when she arrived. Not exactly. She caught something in his tone and grew serious. You need me to keep her overnight? No, I shouldn't be more than a couple hours. Emma hugged him goodbye, already distracted by the promise of Michelle's famous cookies. Daniel watched them drive away, then stood in his quiet house, trying to remember how to breathe normally. At 7:15, he changed shirts 3 times before settling on a simple blue button-down. He told himself he wasn't trying to look good for Olivia, that this was just about having answers. But his reflection in the mirror showed a man who'd carefully combed his hair and trimmed his beard, and he knew he was lying to himself. The Common Ground was a local institution, all exposed brick and mismatched furniture, the kind of place that served artisanal coffee during the day and craft beer at night. Daniel arrived early and chose a table in the back corner, away from the handful of other customers. Olivia walked in at exactly 7:30. She'd changed from her business suit into dark jeans and a cream sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger this way, more like the girl he'd known. She spotted him immediately and made her way over, and Daniel stood because his mother had raised him right, even when facing ghosts. Thank you for meeting me, she said quietly. You said you had answers. I'm here for those, nothing else. Something flickered across her face. Hurt, maybe. But she nodded and sat down. A waitress appeared, took their order, black coffee for him, green tea for her, some things didn't change, and disappeared. They sat in silence until the drinks arrived. Then Olivia wrapped her hands around her mug and looked at him with eyes that held 10 years of secrets. Where do I even start? She said softly. The beginning, the truth, that's all I want. She took a breath. The truth is, I never wanted to leave you. Walking away from you was the hardest thing I've ever done. Then why did you? Because I didn't have a choice. She looked down at her tea. Or at least, I didn't think I did. Daniel waited, his heart hammering. Do you remember Marcus Hayes? Olivia asked. The name sent ice through Daniel's veins. Marcus Hayes, Olivia's father, who'd abandoned her family when she was 12. You told me he was dead. I told you what my mother told me. What we both believed. Olivia's voice shook slightly. Turns out he wasn't dead. He was in prison. Daniel felt the ground shifting beneath him. Prison? Financial fraud, embezzlement. He stole millions from his company and hundreds of people lost their retirement savings. Olivia finally looked up, her eyes bright with unshed tears. And 10 years ago, he got out, and he came looking for us. The coffee shop faded away. Daniel could only stare at Olivia as she continued, her words tumbling out like she'd been holding them back for years. He showed up at my apartment one night, said he changed, said he wanted to make amends, but what he really wanted was money to fund a new scheme. And when my mother and I refused, she swallowed hard. He threatened you. What? He'd been watching us, Daniel. He knew about you, about our plans. He knew you were working on that big downtown project, the one with the city contract. And he said if I didn't disappear, if I didn't cut all ties with you, he'd make sure everyone knew the project manager's fiancée was the daughter of Marcus Hayes, the man who'd stolen from half the city. Daniel felt sick. Olivia, it would have destroyed your career before it started. The city would have dropped you from the project. Your reputation would have been ruined by association with my family name. Her voice broke. And my father, he said if I told you why I was leaving, if I gave you any way to fight back, he'd escalate. He'd plant evidence, create scandals, whatever it took to destroy you completely. The room was spinning. Daniel gripped the edge of the table. So you just left? You didn't think I deserved to know, to choose for myself? I was 22 years old and terrified. Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks now. My father was a monster who'd already destroyed countless lives. I couldn't let him destroy yours too. I thought if I just disappeared, if I made it clean and complete, he'd leave you alone. And he did. He moved on to his next scheme, got arrested again 2 years later, and he's back in prison now, for good this time. Daniel's mind reeled, trying to process this complete rewriting of the past. 8 years. You could have come back. You could have explained. By then you'd moved on, or at least I thought you had. Olivia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I checked on you sometimes, from a distance. I saw you were building your company, making a name for yourself. I told myself you were better off, that I'd made the right choice. That wasn't your choice to make. His raised voice drew looks from other customers. Daniel lowered it, but the anger still burned. You decided what I could handle. You decided my future without me. That's not protection, Olivia. That's control. You're right. She didn't flinch from his fury. You're absolutely right. I was young and scared, and I made the wrong choice. I've known that for years, but I can't undo it. I can only tell you now what I should have told you then. They sat in heavy silence. Daniel's coffee had gone cold, untouched. His entire understanding of the past was reshaping itself, and he didn't know what to do with the pieces. Why didn't you come back after he was arrested the second time? He finally asked. Because 6 years had passed. Because I'd built a different life. Because... She hesitated. Because I was afraid you'd hate me, and I thought maybe that was what I deserved. Sophia's father? Never existed. Not really. Olivia's smile was sad. I adopted her when she was 2. I wanted to be a mother, and I'd given up on the idea of having the life I'd once dreamed of. So I created a different dream. Yet Daniel absorbed this, thinking of his own path to fatherhood. And now? Why did you come back to this city, knowing I might still be here? Because Sophia deserved a fresh start, and I got offered the CEO position at Hartley Industries. It was too good to turn down. She met his eyes. But honestly, part of me hoped I'd see you. Part of me wanted the chance to finally tell you the truth. And the other part? Was terrified of exactly this conversation. Daniel stood abruptly, needing distance, needing air. He walked to the window, looking out at the darkened street. Behind him, he heard Olivia's chair scrape as she stood too. I don't expect forgiveness, she said quietly. I just wanted you to know that leaving you wasn't about not loving you. It was about loving you too much to let my father destroy you. He turned to face her. That's a hell of a thing to carry for 10 years. Yes, it is. They stood there, 2 people who'd once planned forever together, now strangers bound by history and hurt. I need time, Daniel said finally, to process this, to figure out what it means. I understand. Emma, she can't know about any of this. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Of course not. Daniel pulled out his wallet, threw cash on the table for his untouched coffee. I should go. Daniel? He stopped, hand on the door. I know it doesn't change anything, Olivia said, her voice barely audible. But I need you to know, there hasn't been a single day in 10 years when I didn't think about you, didn't wonder what our life would have looked like, didn't regret the choice I made, even though I still don't know what the right choice would have been. Daniel didn't trust himself to speak. He just nodded once and walked out into the cool night air, leaving Olivia standing alone among the coffee shop's warm lights and quiet conversations. The drive to Michelle's house passed in a blur. Emma was asleep on the couch when he arrived, and Michelle helped him carry her to his truck without asking questions he couldn't answer. At home, Daniel tucked Emma into bed, watching her peaceful face in the nightlight's glow. She was his anchor, his purpose, his reason for getting up every morning and putting one foot in front of the other. But tonight, everything felt unmoored. In his bedroom, Daniel lay awake for hours, Olivia's words echoing in his mind. She'd sacrificed their future to protect his career. She'd lived 10 years carrying the weight of that choice. She'd built a different life but never stopped thinking about the one they'd lost. And he was supposed to do what with that information? Forgive her? Hate her? Something in between? His phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. Thank you for listening. I know it doesn't fix anything, but at least now you know. You deserve the truth, even if it came 10 years too late. Daniel stared at the message for a long time. Then, finally, he typed back, I don't know what to do with this, but yeah, I deserve the truth. He added, Good night, Olivia. Her response came quickly. Good night, Daniel. 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, for what it's worth, I never stopped loving you either. The message hit him like a physical blow. Daniel set his phone face down on the nightstand and closed his eyes, but sleep remained elusive. The past had walked back into his life, carrying explanations that somehow made everything both better and worse. Olivia hadn't left because she stopped loving him. She'd left because she loved him too much. And Daniel had no idea what to do with a truth like that. The construction site became Daniel's refuge over the next few days. There was something clarifying about physical labor, about the straightforward logic of load-bearing walls and proper angles. A building either stood or it didn't. Unlike human relationships, which could collapse under the weight of good intentions. Jake noticed, of course. On Thursday afternoon, as they were reviewing blueprints for the hotel's 3rd floor, he finally confronted Daniel. You've been here since 5:30 every morning this week, Jake said, rolling up the plans. You trying to set a new record, or you just avoiding something? Can a guy be dedicated to his work? Sure, but you're not dedicated. You're hiding. Jake leaned against the makeshift desk they'd set up in the trailer. Does this have anything to do with why Michelle had Emma overnight on Tuesday? Daniel set down his pencil. I met with Olivia. She explained why she left. And it's complicated. Jake waited, his silence an invitation Daniel wasn't sure he wanted to accept. But the story had been churning inside him for 3 days, and maybe speaking it aloud would make it feel less like a fever dream. He told Jake everything. Marcus Hayes, the threats, Olivia's impossible choice. His best friend listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from surprise to anger to something resembling understanding. That's heavy, Jake said when Daniel finished. She really thought she was protecting you. She was 22 and scared. I get that. But Jake, she made a decision about my life without me. She decided I couldn't handle the truth. Would you have let her go if she'd told you? The question stopped Daniel cold. He wanted to say yes, that he would have understood, that he would have prioritized his career over their relationship. But they both knew it would have been a lie. I would have fought, Daniel admitted. I would have told her we could handle it together, that I didn't care about my reputation or the project. Exactly. And maybe she was right that fighting would have made things worse. Maybe her father really would have destroyed you. Jake shrugged. Or maybe you would have found a way through it together. You'll never know, because she didn't give you that choice. So what do I do now? That depends. Do you still love her? Daniel's laugh was hollow. Does it matter? 10 years happened, Jake. She has a daughter. I have Emma. We're different people living different lives. That's not an answer. I don't have an answer. I barely know how I feel about any of this. His phone rang. interrupting the conversation. Emma's school. Daniel answered immediately, his heart rate spiking. Mr. Brooks? This is Principal Martinez. Emma's fine, but there's been an incident. 20 minutes later, Daniel was sitting in the principal's office, looking at his daughter's tear-stained face. Beside her sat another little girl, Sophia Hayes, also crying. The girls got into an argument during recess, Principal Martinez explained. She was a stern woman in her 60s who ran Jefferson Elementary with fair but firm authority. It escalated into pushing, and Emma scraped her knee when she fell. Daniel examined the bandage on Emma's knee, then looked at his daughter. What happened? Emma's lower lip trembled. Sophia said her mom could buy anything she wanted because they're rich. And I said that's mean to brag about, and she pushed me, so I pushed her back and then I fell. Sophia? Principal Martinez prompted. The other girl wiped her eyes. I didn't mean to be mean. I was just saying my mom's job is important. But Emma said having money doesn't make you better than other people, and I got mad. Daniel felt a headache building behind his eyes. Of course, his daughter and Olivia's daughter were fighting. The universe apparently had a sense of irony. Both girls need to apologize, Principal Martinez said firmly. And we've called Ms. Hayes. She should be here shortly. As if summoned by the mention of her name, Olivia appeared in the doorway, slightly breathless. She was wearing another expensive suit, her hair pulled back, her phone still in her hand. Her eyes went immediately to Sophia, then flickered to Daniel, surprise crossing her features. Ms. Hayes, thank you for coming, Principal Martinez said. Please, have a seat. Olivia sat in the empty chair beside Daniel, careful to maintain distance between them. The principal explained the situation again, and Daniel watched Olivia's expression shift from concern to disappointment. Sophia, Olivia said quietly, what have we talked about regarding bragging? That it's not nice, Sophia mumbled. And did you brag about money? Yes. Emma, Daniel said, did you push Sophia first or second? Second, but she pushed me first. And what do we do when someone pushes us? Emma looked down. Tell a teacher, not push back. That's right. Principal Martinez nodded approvingly. I'm glad we're on the same page. Girls, you both need to apologize to each other, and you'll both be sitting out recess tomorrow. But that's not fair, Sophia protested. Sophia. Olivia's voice was gentle but firm. Principal Martinez is right. You both made mistakes. You both have consequences. The girls apologized to each other with the sullen reluctance of children who weren't quite ready to mean it. Principal Martinez dismissed them to return to class, and suddenly Daniel and Olivia were alone in the office with the principal. I appreciate you both coming so quickly, Principal Martinez said. The girls will be fine. Playground arguments are normal. But I wanted you to be aware. They thanked her and walked out together, an awkward silence settling over them in the hallway. Through the classroom windows, Daniel could see students bent over their work, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the adult world. I'm sorry about Sophia, Olivia said quietly. She's been struggling with the move. Sometimes she overcompensates. Emma's been dealing with some stuff too, questions about her mother. They reached the main entrance, and Daniel realized they were both hesitating, neither quite ready to leave. Daniel, Olivia started, then stopped. Would you want to grab coffee or lunch? I know you're probably working, but I need to get back to the site. Right, of course. She looked away, and Daniel caught the flash of disappointment in her eyes. He should have left, should have walked away, maintained the distance that was probably healthier for both of them. But instead he heard himself saying, There's a deli 2 blocks from here, Giuseppe's. I can spare 30 minutes. Relief washed over Olivia's face. I'd like that. They walked in silence to Giuseppe's, a neighborhood institution that had been serving sandwiches since before either of them was born. The lunch rush had passed, leaving only a few customers scattered among the red vinyl booths. They ordered at the counter, turkey on rye for him, caprese for her, and found a booth near the back. How's Emma's knee? Olivia asked once they'd settled. She'll be fine. She's tougher than she looks. She seems like a wonderful kid. Mrs. Peterson raves about her. Sophia seems great, too. You've done well with her. The small talk felt strange, like they were strangers at a networking event rather than people who'd once known each other's every secret. This is weird, isn't it? Olivia said, echoing his thoughts. Sitting here making polite conversation like we don't have a decade of history between us. Yeah, it is. Their sandwiches arrived, providing a momentary distraction. Daniel took a bite, remembering how they used to come to places like this when they were younger, too broke for fancy restaurants but happy just to be together. I meant what I said the other night, Olivia said quietly. In that last text, I never stopped loving you. Daniel set down his sandwich. Olivia, I know it's not fair to tell you that. I know I have no right to put that on you, but I'm tired of hiding things from you. I did that once, and it cost us everything. What do you want from me? Forgiveness? Absolution? I don't know. Her eyes were honest, vulnerable in a way that reminded him of the girl he'd fallen for at 20. Maybe I just want you to understand that leaving you broke me too, that I didn't walk away unscathed. You rebuilt. You became a CEO. You adopted a daughter. You created a whole life. I created a replacement life, Olivia corrected. I filled the emptiness with work and achievement, and eventually with Sophia, who I love more than anything. But Daniel, none of it was the life I wanted. It was just the life I had left after I walked away from the one we were supposed to build together. The vulnerability in her voice cut through his defenses. Daniel found himself really looking at her for the first time since she'd reappeared, not at the polished CEO or the ghost from his past, but at the woman sitting across from him, holding pain he understood too well. I did the same thing, he admitted. After you left, I threw myself into work. Built the company, took every project I could find, worked until I was too exhausted to think. And then Sarah came along, and I thought maybe I could create something new, but it was never right. It was never what I'd had with you. And then Emma. And then Emma. Daniel's expression softened. Who changed everything. Suddenly I wasn't working to forget anymore. I was working to build something for her, to give her the stable life I never had growing up. You were raised by your mom alone too, after your dad died. Yeah, and I swore I'd never let my kid feel like they were a burden, like my mom sometimes made me feel even though she didn't mean to. He paused. Sarah leaving was almost easier than you leaving, in a way, because with her, I knew from the start it wasn't real love. But with you, it was everything. Olivia finished softly. They sat in the weight of that truth, surrounded by the ordinary sounds of the deli, the hiss of the espresso machine, conversations from other tables, the bell above the door chiming as customers came and went. My father died 2 years ago, Olivia said suddenly. In prison. He never got to cause any more damage. I'm sorry. Don't be. He was a monster who destroyed lives without remorse. The only thing I regret is that he died without ever truly understanding what he took from me. Her voice hardened. From us. Do you think about it? What our life would have looked like? All the time. Olivia's smile was sad. I imagine we would have gotten married in that little church you liked, the one with the garden. You would have worn the navy suit you'd picked out, and I would have had flowers in my hair because I never wanted a veil. Daniel felt his throat tighten. He remembered that church, those plans, the way Olivia had laughed when he'd suggested matching boutonniere. We would have had a small wedding, just close friends and family. And Jake would have been your best man, making terrible jokes in his toast. Your mother would have cried through the whole ceremony. We would have bought that fixer-upper on Elm Street that we looked at, and spent every weekend renovating it. They were building the ghost of their future together, brick by brick of what might have been. It was painful and beautiful and utterly pointless. We can't do this, Daniel said, breaking the spell. We can't live in the past. I know, Olivia wiped at her eyes. But sometimes I just need to remember that it was real, that we were real. We were real. Daniel reached across the table, hesitated, then covered her hand with his. The contact sent electricity through him, familiar and foreign all at once. But Olivia, I have Emma to think about. I can't get caught up in what ifs and maybes. I have to live in what is. I understand. She didn't pull her hand away. What is it that you want? From this situation? From me? The question hung between them. Daniel thought about what he wanted. Closure, answers, maybe something he couldn't even name. But what he said was, I want to be able to see you at school events without my world falling apart. I want our daughters to be able to be friends without this weird tension. I want... What? I want to stop feeling like I'm 22 and heartbroken every time I look at you. Olivia's fingers tightened around his. I want that too. But I don't know how we get there. Maybe we start by being honest. No more secrets. No more hiding. Okay, honestly? Olivia took a shaky breath. Seeing you again has made me realize that I never actually moved on. I just got very good at pretending I had. Honestly? Same. They sat there, hands clasped across the table. Two people who'd loved and lost and somehow found themselves in the same city again. Their lives intertwined by their daughter's classroom placement and the stubborn persistence of old feelings. Daniel's phone buzzed. Jake, asking about a materials shipment. Reality intruding on the fragile moment. I really do need to get back to work, Daniel said, reluctantly withdrawing his hand. Of course. They paid for their barely touched sandwiches and walked out into the afternoon sunshine. On the sidewalk, they stood facing each other, and Daniel was struck by how much and how little had changed. Olivia was still beautiful, still driven, still the woman who could make him forget everything else just by being near. But she was also a stranger now, someone who'd lived 10 years he knew nothing about. Can we do this again? Olivia asked. Maybe when we have more time? I'd like to hear about your life, about Emma, about everything I missed. I'd like that. But Olivia, I know. We take it slow. We're careful. We protect our daughters first. Exactly. She smiled, and for just a moment he saw the girl he'd loved at 20. I can work with that. They exchanged a slightly awkward goodbye, neither sure if a hug was appropriate, and went their separate ways. Daniel drove back to the construction site with his mind racing. He'd thought the conversation at the coffee shop had been the resolution, the moment where the past explained itself and everyone moved forward. But instead, it had been just the beginning. Jake took one look at him when he returned to the site and shook his head. You're in trouble, aren't you? Probably. Still love her? Daniel picked up his hard hat, avoiding his friend's knowing gaze. I don't know what I feel, but yeah. There's still something there. So what are you going to do about it? Be smart. Be careful. Not screw up my daughter's life chasing ghosts. And if she's not a ghost? If she's real and right here and still in love with you? Daniel didn't have an answer for that. The next few weeks fell into an unexpected pattern. Daniel and Olivia started meeting for coffee once a week, always somewhere neutral, always during work hours when their daughters were safely at school. They talked about safe topics at first, work, their kids, the city's changes over the past decade. But gradually, carefully, they began filling in the gaps of their separate lives. Olivia told him about building her career, about the years in Chicago and Seattle before the Hartley Industries opportunity brought her back. She told him about the loneliness of success, about finding Sophia in a foster care system that was overwhelmed and underfunded, about falling in love with a 2-year-old who'd already seen too much hardship. Daniel told her about the early years of his construction company, about the night Sarah told him she was pregnant, about holding Emma for the first time and feeling simultaneously terrified and complete. He told her about the sleepless nights and the small triumphs, about learning to braid hair from YouTube videos and attending ballet recitals where he was the only dad. They were mapping the territories of their separate journeys, trying to understand who they'd become in the years apart. Do you ever regret keeping her? Olivia asked one afternoon, referring to Emma. They were at their usual coffee shop, seated at what had become their regular table. Never, not once. Daniel's voice was firm. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Even on the hard days, even when I'm exhausted and overwhelmed, I've never regretted choosing her. That's beautiful. It's just the truth. Being her dad gave me purpose when I was kind of drifting. After I left. Yeah, after you left. Daniel met her eyes. I'm not saying that to make you feel guilty. I'm just being honest. I appreciate the honesty. Olivia stirred her tea absently. I felt the same way about Sophia. Like she gave me a reason to be better, to build something meaningful instead of just successful. Does she know she's adopted? Yes. I've always been honest with her about it. She knows her birth mother loved her but couldn't take care of her, and that I chose her specifically because she was special. That's a good way to frame it. They fell into comfortable silence, and Daniel marveled at how natural this had become. 4 weeks ago, seeing Olivia had sent his world into chaos. Now these coffee meetings were the highlight of his week, moments of connection that felt both dangerous and necessary. Daniel, Olivia said carefully, I need to tell you something. His stomach tightened. Okay. Sophia's been asking about you. Me? Why? Because Emma talks about you at school, about how you do voices when you read bedtime stories, and how you make pancakes shaped like animals, and how you taught her to ride a bike. Olivia's smile was tender. Emma clearly adores you, and Sophia, she doesn't have that. Her grandfather is gone, and there's never been a father figure in her life. Olivia, I don't know if... I'm not asking you to be her father, Olivia said quickly. I'm just telling you that she's curious, and I thought you should know before she does something like ask Emma if she can come over to your house sometime. Daniel absorbed this. How do you feel about that? Honestly, terrified. Because if our daughters become close, we become more connected. And I don't know if that's fair to you. Or to you. I've already made my peace with the consequences of my choices. Olivia looked down at her hands. But you didn't choose any of this. You could have gone your whole life without seeing me again. And maybe that would have been better for you. Would it have? I don't know. Would it? Daniel thought about the question seriously. Life before Olivia reappeared had been simpler, more contained, but it had also been incomplete in ways he hadn't fully acknowledged until she'd walked back into it. I don't think I get to go back to not knowing, he said finally, even if I wanted to. You're here, Sophia's in Emma's class, and we're both trying to raise our daughters in the same community. We were always going to have to figure out how to coexist. So we're coexisting. We're trying. Olivia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and sighed. I have a board meeting in 30 minutes. I need to go. They gathered their things and walked out together, a ritual that had become familiar. On the sidewalk, Olivia hesitated. Daniel, thank you. For what? For not hating me. For giving me a chance to explain, for these conversations. Her eyes shimmered. For reminding me that the person I was at 22 wasn't completely naive. That what we had was worth protecting, even if I went about it all wrong. Before Daniel could respond, she'd turned and walked toward her car, leaving him standing on the sidewalk with too many feelings and not enough words. That evening, Emma had a request that made Daniel's carefully maintained boundaries suddenly feel very fragile. Dad, can Sophia come over for a play date? She asked over dinner. They were eating spaghetti, and Emma had sauce on her chin despite Daniel's multiple reminders to use her napkin. Where did this come from? We made up after our fight, and she's actually really nice. She has a whole collection of books about animals, and she knows everything about dolphins. That's great, sweetie, but please, Dad. She doesn't have a lot of friends yet because she's new, and I told her about our backyard and the treehouse you built, and she really wants to see it. Daniel looked at his daughter's hopeful face and felt his resolve crumbling. Emma had inherited his tendency to champion the underdog, to extend kindness to those who needed it. How could he explain that this particular friendship was complicated without revealing things an 8-year-old shouldn't have to understand? Let me talk to Sophia's mom first, he said carefully. These things need to be coordinated. Can you text her tonight, please? We'll see. After Emma was in bed, Daniel sat on his back porch with a beer, staring at his phone. He should call Olivia, not text. This conversation required actual voices, actual nuance. But calling felt too intimate, too much like the old days when they'd spend hours on the phone just talking about nothing and everything. He texted instead. Emma asked if Sophia can come over for a play date. I said I'd check with you first. The response came quickly. Sophia asked the same thing. I wasn't sure how to answer. Neither was I. What do you think? Daniel stared at the question. What did he think? That letting their daughters become friends would inevitably pull him and Olivia closer together? That he was already in deeper than was wise? That he thought about her more than he should? That their weekly coffee meetings had become the thing he looked forward to most? I think we can't keep them apart just because things are complicated for us, he typed. They're kids. They should get to be friends if they want to. You're right. Saturday afternoon? I could drop Sophia off for a couple of hours. That works. 2 p.m.? Perfect. And Daniel? Thank you. Saturday arrived with the kind of bright autumn weather that made everything feel possible. Daniel spent the morning cleaning the house with Emma's enthusiastic but not particularly helpful assistance. She was practically vibrating with excitement by the time 2 p.m. approached. When Olivia's car pulled into the driveway, Emma ran to the window. "They're here!" Daniel opened the door to find Sophia standing on his porch holding a small gift bag, her mother behind her looking nervous. "Hi, Mr. Brooks," Sophia said brightly. "I brought Emma a present. Mom said it's polite to bring gifts when you visit someone's house." "That's very thoughtful," Daniel said, charmed despite himself. "Come on in." Emma appeared, suddenly shy now that her new friend was actually here. But Sophia's gift, a book about sea creatures, broke the ice, and soon both girls were chattering excitedly about ocean animals as they headed toward Emma's room, which left Daniel and Olivia standing in his living room, alone. "Your home is lovely," Olivia said, looking around at the comfortable furniture, the photos on the wall, the evidence of a life built from scratch. "It's not much, but it's ours. Feels like a home. That's worth more than square footage." An awkward silence fell. Daniel gestured toward the kitchen. "Coffee? I should probably get going. Give the girls space." "Olivia, you drove all the way here. Have a cup of coffee." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. Thank you." In the kitchen, Daniel busied himself with the coffee maker while Olivia stood by the window overlooking the backyard. He was acutely aware of her presence in his space, the intimacy of her scene where he lived, where he raised his daughter. "You built that treehouse?" she asked, gesturing to the structure Emma had mentioned. "Yeah, it took me 3 weekends and way more lumber than I initially calculated." "It's impressive. It's slightly crooked, but Emma loves it." Olivia turned from the window, and something in her expression made Daniel's breath catch. She looked soft in the afternoon light, vulnerable in a way that bypassed all his defenses. "What are we doing, Daniel?" she asked quietly. "Making coffee? You know what I mean." He did. Daniel poured 2 cups, handed her one, and leaned against the counter. "I don't know, figuring it out as we go." "This is dangerous. These weekly meetings, our daughters becoming friends, the way I can't stop thinking about—" She stopped abruptly. "About what?" Olivia set down her coffee cup, her hands shaking slightly. "About you, about us. About whether we're just torturing ourselves by staying in each other's lives, or whether there's actually something here worth exploring." The honesty landed like a bomb in Daniel's quiet kitchen. He set down his own cup, his heart hammering. "I think about it too," he admitted. "Every day. Whether we're being smart or stupid, whether we're protecting our daughters or using them as an excuse to avoid—" From upstairs came the sound of the girls' laughter, bright and carefree. Daniel and Olivia both looked toward the ceiling, reminded of what was at stake. "We have to be careful," Daniel said. "Whatever this is, whatever we're feeling, we can't let it mess up what they're building." "I agree. But Olivia, I'm not ready to walk away again. From these conversations, from getting to know who you've become, even if it's complicated and messy and probably a terrible idea." She stepped closer and Daniel could smell her perfume, something different from what she used to wear, but somehow still essentially her. "I'm not ready to walk away either." They stood there in his kitchen, inches apart, the past and present colliding in the space between them. Daniel wanted to close the distance, wanted to remember what it felt like to hold her, to kiss her, to believe in forever again. But upstairs, his daughter was playing with her daughter, and that complicated everything. "We take it slow," he said, his voice rough. "We're honest with each other. And if it starts affecting Emma or Sophia negatively, we stop." "Agreed." "I mean it, Olivia. Emma comes first, always." "I know. Sophia comes first for me too." She reached out, her hand finding his. "But maybe if we're careful, there's room for this too. Whatever this is." The touch of her hand sent warmth through Daniel's entire body. He laced his fingers through hers, marveling at how right it felt after all these years. "One step at a time," he said. "One step at a time," she echoed. They stood there holding hands in Daniel's kitchen while their daughters played upstairs and the afternoon sun painted gold across the floor. It wasn't a resolution. It wasn't even a clear beginning, but it was something, a small fragile acknowledgement that the past hadn't released its grip on either of them, and maybe, just maybe, that wasn't entirely a bad thing. The sound of footsteps on the stairs broke the moment. Daniel and Olivia stepped apart just as Emma and Sophia appeared in the kitchen doorway, their faces flushed with excitement. "Dad, can we have snacks?" Emma asked. "We're building a fort in my room, and we need provisions." Daniel smiled, grateful for the interruption, even as part of him mourned the lost moment. "What kind of provisions are we talking about?" "Cookies and juice boxes," Sophia supplied helpfully. "That's what fort builders need." "Is that so?" Olivia asked, her voice steadier than her eyes suggested. "And where did you learn about fort building requirements?" "Emma told me. She's an expert." Emma beamed at the compliment. Daniel pulled out a package of cookies and 2 juice boxes, handing them to his daughter. "Don't make too much of a mess, okay?" "We won't," both girls chorused before disappearing back upstairs in a flurry of giggles. Olivia laughed softly, the tension in the kitchen dissolving. "They're really hitting it off." "Yeah, they are." Daniel returned to his coffee, needing something to do with his hands. "Sophia seems like a great kid." "She is. She's been through a lot for someone so young, but she's resilient." Olivia's expression grew thoughtful. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm enough for her, if she needs more than just me." "I know exactly what you mean. I worry about the same thing with Emma, whether she's missing out by not having a mother figure." "Has she asked about Sarah?" "More lately. Mrs. Peterson mentioned it at parent-teacher night. Emma's been asking where her mom is, why she left." Daniel sighed. "I've tried to be honest without being harsh. I tell her that sometimes people aren't ready to be parents, but that it doesn't mean she wasn't wanted. That's a good way to handle it. Doesn't make it easier when she asks if her mom will ever come back." "What do you tell her?" "The truth. That I don't know, but that she'll always have me." Daniel met Olivia's eyes. "That she's loved and safe, and that's what matters most." Olivia's eyes glistened. "You're a good father, Daniel. Emma's lucky to have you." "I'm the lucky one. She saved me in a lot of ways." They fell into silence again, but this time it was comfortable, weighted with understanding rather than awkwardness. Olivia glanced at her watch and grimaced. "I really should go. I have calls this afternoon." "Even on Saturday?" CEO life doesn't really stop, especially when you're trying to prove yourself in a new position. Daniel walked her to the door, hyper-aware of how domestic this all felt. Like they were a couple coordinating their weekend, discussing their children, living a life together. Except they weren't a couple. They were 2 people with a complicated history trying to figure out how to exist in the same space. "Thank you for this," Olivia said at the door. "For letting them be friends. For not making this harder than it has to be. Thank you for being honest. About everything." She hesitated, then reached up and touched his cheek briefly. The gesture was so familiar, so achingly reminiscent of the thousands of times she'd done it before, that Daniel's breath caught. "I'll pick Sophia up at 4?" she asked, her hand falling away. "That works." After she left, Daniel stood in his quiet living room trying to process what was happening. He'd spent 10 years building walls around his heart, and Olivia was dismantling them brick by brick just by being present, by being real, by being the woman he'd never actually stopped loving. His phone rang. "Jake." "How's the playdate going?" his friend asked without preamble. "How did you even know about the playdate?" "Michelle ran into Emma at the grocery store yesterday. Your daughter was very excited about her new friend coming over. Michelle put 2 and 2 together." "Of course she did." "So, is Olivia there?" "She dropped Sophia off and left. She's picking her up at 4. "And?" "And what?" "Don't play dumb. What happened?" Daniel sank onto the couch. "We talked. We're trying to figure this out, whatever this is." "You still have feelings for her." "Of course I do. 10 years doesn't erase what we had, Jake. Seeing her again just brought it all back." "So what are you going to do about it?" "Be careful. Take it slow. Not screw up my kid's life." "You keep saying that like it's a mantra." "Because it is. Emma has to come first." "She can come first, and you can still have a life, Daniel. Those things aren't mutually exclusive." "Maybe not. But right now everything feels too complicated to figure out." Jake was quiet for a moment. "You know what I think? I think you're scared. Not of Olivia, not of getting hurt again. You're scared of being happy." The observation hit harder than Daniel wanted to admit. "That's not... It is. You've spent 3 years in survival mode, being the best dad you can be, working yourself to the bone, but not actually living. And now someone shows up who makes you want more. And that terrifies you. Even if that's true, it doesn't change anything. Doesn't it? Daniel, you deserve to be happy. Emma deserves to see her father actually living, not just existing. After Jake hung up, Daniel sat with those words. Was he just existing? He thought he was building a good life for Emma, creating stability and security. But maybe somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten that a good life should include more than just responsibility and sacrifice. The afternoon passed in a blur of fort modifications and snack requests. At 4 o'clock sharp, Olivia returned. She was wearing jeans now instead of her earlier business casual, her hair loose around her shoulders, and she looked more relaxed than Daniel had seen her. "How did it go?" she asked as Sophia gathered her things. "Great. They barely noticed I was here." Sophia hugged Emma goodbye. "Can we do this again next weekend?" Emma looked at Daniel hopefully, and he glanced at Olivia, seeing his own uncertainty reflected in her eyes. "We'll see," they both said simultaneously, then laughed at the synchronicity. After they left, Emma talked nonstop through dinner about all the things she and Sophia had done, the games they'd played, the stories they'd shared. Daniel listened, watching his daughter's animated face, and realized how much she'd needed this. A friend. A connection with someone her own age who understood what it was like to have an unconventional family. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel found himself on the back porch again with a beer, thinking about everything Jake had said. His phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Sophia hasn't stopped talking about today. Thank you for making her feel so welcome. Emma's the same. They're good for each other. Yes, they are." A pause, then another message. "I've been thinking about what we said earlier, about taking this slow. And I think we need to be honest with ourselves about what we're doing." Daniel's heart rate picked up. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we're not just being friendly for our daughter's sake. There's still something between us, and pretending there isn't seems dishonest." He stared at the message, at the truth he'd been avoiding. "You're right. So what do we do about it?" "I don't know. What do you want to do?" The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, "I want to see where this goes, but I'm terrified of hurting you again, or hurting Sophia and Emma. I'm terrified too. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we can be terrified together." Poetic for a construction worker. "I have hidden depths. I remember." The weight of those 2 words sent warmth through Daniel's chest. She remembered. After 10 years, after all the pain and distance, she still remembered who he was beneath the hard hat and work boots. "Can I take you to dinner?" he typed before he could overthink it. "Just us. A real date." The pause before her response felt eternal. "Yes, I'd like that." "Friday night? Michelle can watch Emma. I'll arrange a sitter for Sophia. It's a date. It's terrifying, that too." Daniel set down his phone, his hands shaking slightly. He'd just asked Olivia on a date. After 10 years of silence, after all the hurt and unanswered questions, after everything that had happened, he was choosing to step forward instead of back. The week leading up to Friday crawled by with agonizing slowness. Daniel threw himself into work, but even the familiar rhythm of construction couldn't quiet his racing thoughts. He caught himself checking his phone constantly, looking for messages from Olivia. They texted throughout the week, small exchanges about their days, their daughters, the mundane details of life that felt intimate in their ordinariness. On Wednesday, Emma asked a question that made Daniel's careful plans feel suddenly fragile. "Dad, do you like Sophia's mom?" They were doing dishes together, Emma drying while Daniel washed. He nearly dropped the plate in his hand. "What makes you ask that?" "You smile different when you talk about her. And Sophia says her mom smiles different when she talks about you too." Daniel chose his words carefully. "Ms. Hayes and I are old friends. We knew each other a long time ago." "Before I was born?" "Yes, before you were born." Emma considered this, her 8-year-old mind working through the implications. "Were you boyfriend and girlfriend?" "We were. But that was a very long time ago." "What happened?" "Sometimes things don't work out, even when people care about each other." "But you still care about her." It wasn't a question. Daniel looked at his perceptive daughter and saw no point in lying. "Yeah, sweetheart, I do." "Good. I like her. She's nice to Sophia, and Sophia says she's really smart and helps people. She is smart. Are you going to be boyfriend and girlfriend again? Daniel dried his hands on a towel, buying time. I don't know. Maybe. Would that be okay with you? Emma shrugged with the casual acceptance of childhood. I guess. As long as it doesn't mean I can't see Sophia anymore. No matter what happens between Ms. Hayes and me, you and Sophia can still be friends. Promise? Promise. Emma hugged him suddenly, fiercely. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Em. That night, Daniel called Jake. Emma knows something's going on. Kids always know. They're observant little creatures. She asked if Olivia and I were going to be boyfriend and girlfriend again. And you said? That I didn't know. But Jake, she was okay with it. She basically gave me permission to see where this goes. That's good, right? It should be, but it also makes it more real, more scary. Daniel, you're overthinking this. You have a date with a woman you care about. Just see how it goes. Friday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn evening that made everything feel charged with possibility. Daniel spent an embarrassing amount of time deciding what to wear, finally settling on dark jeans and a button-down shirt that Emma declared made him look fancy but not weird. Michelle arrived at 6:30 to watch Emma, giving Daniel a knowing look. Have fun. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. That leaves a lot of room for interpretation. Exactly. Daniel drove to the restaurant they'd agreed on, a small Italian place that had opened since Olivia left. It had good reviews and wasn't anywhere they'd been together before. Neutral territory. Olivia was already there when he arrived, seated at a corner table, looking stunning in a simple black dress. She stood when she saw him, and for a moment they just looked at each other, the weight of what they were doing settling over them. Hi, she said softly. Hi yourself. You look beautiful. Thank you. You look pretty good too. They sat, and suddenly the ease of their coffee shop conversations felt miles away. This was different. This was intentional. This was them choosing each other again, even if tentatively. The waiter appeared, took their drink orders, and disappeared. Olivia fidgeted with her napkin. I'm nervous, she admitted. Me too. This feels like a first date and a 10th anniversary dinner all at once. Daniel laughed. That's exactly it. I keep trying to remember how to do this, how to date, how to be with you without all the history crushing us. Olivia reached across the table, taking his hand. Maybe we don't try to ignore the history. Maybe we acknowledge it's there and move forward anyway. I can try that. Their drinks arrived and they ordered dinner without really looking at the menu. Once the waiter left again, Olivia squeezed Daniel's hand. Tell me something I don't know about you, something from the last 10 years. Daniel thought about it. I learned to bake. Not well, but I can make a decent birthday cake now. Emma's allergic to store-bought frosting, so I had to figure it out. That's sweet. Both the baking and the reason. Your turn. I learned to sail. There was a marina near my apartment in Seattle, and I took lessons. I thought it would help with stress, but mostly I just fell in the water a lot. Daniel tried to picture CEO Olivia drenched and frustrated on a sailboat and couldn't help but smile. I would have paid to see that. It was not my finest moment, but I got decent eventually. There's something peaceful about being on the water with nothing but wind and silence. They traded stories throughout dinner, filling in the gaps of their separate lives. Olivia told him about her rise through corporate ranks, about the sacrifices and compromises it had required, about the loneliness of being the only woman in most boardrooms. Daniel told her about building his company from nothing, about the late nights and near bankruptcies, about the satisfaction of creating something tangible with his own hands. Do you regret it? Olivia asked over dessert. Not finishing your architecture degree? Sometimes. But I like being on site, being part of the physical creation. Architecture was always more about the theory for me. You're building the city you once dreamed of designing. I guess I am. Olivia's smile was soft. That's beautiful, Daniel. You found your purpose even when everything fell apart. So did you, CEO by 32. That's impressive. It's impressive on paper. In reality, it's exhausting and isolating, and sometimes I wonder if I'm actually making a difference or just making money for shareholders. Why did you take the job here, really? She looked down at her wine glass. Honestly, Because I wanted to come home. Seattle was successful, but it never felt right. And when Hartley Industries made the offer, I thought maybe this was my chance to build something that mattered in a place that actually meant something to me. And was I part of that calculation? I'd be lying if I said you weren't in the back of my mind. I knew you might still be here. I knew I might run into you. Her eyes met his. Part of me hoped I would. Part of me was terrified of it. And now that it's happened? Now I'm still terrified, but I'm also grateful. Because seeing you again made me realize I've been living half a life. Successful, but not whole. Daniel's throat tightened. I know that feeling. They finished their meal in the warm glow of shared understanding. When the check came, they argued briefly about who should pay before agreeing to split it. Outside the restaurant, they stood on the sidewalk as other diners passed by, couples and friends and families going about their Friday night. Olivia shivered slightly in the cool air, and Daniel instinctively moved closer. I don't want this evening to end, she said quietly. Me neither. But we both have to get back to our daughters. Unfortunately, yes. Olivia looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. Can we do this again? Absolutely. Soon? As soon as you want. She stepped closer, closing the distance between them until Daniel could feel the warmth of her body. I want to kiss you. Is that crazy? His heart hammered against his ribs. Probably. But I want you to anyway. Olivia rose on her toes, her hand finding the back of his neck, and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking something fragile. But then Daniel's arms wrapped around her waist and pulled her closer, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Olivia rested her forehead against his chest. That was... Yeah, Daniel agreed, his voice rough. It really was. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other on a sidewalk in the city where their story had started and ended, and apparently was beginning again. Finally, reluctantly, they separated. I should go, Olivia said, though she didn't move. Me too. Neither of them moved. Okay, seriously? I'm going now, Olivia said, laughing. She took a step back, then another. I'll text you tomorrow? You better. She walked to her car, turning back once to wave. Daniel watched her drive away, then stood there for several more minutes, trying to process what had just happened. He'd kissed Olivia Hayes. After 10 years of silence, of hurt, of questions and answers, and tentative rebuilding, he'd kissed her, and it had felt like the most natural thing in the world. His phone rang as he was driving home. Olivia. I couldn't wait until tomorrow to text, she said when he answered. I just wanted to hear your voice again. Daniel pulled over into a parking lot, unable to drive and focus on her voice simultaneously. I'm glad you called. That kiss, I know. I haven't stopped thinking about it. Neither have I. Daniel, I need to say something. Okay. I'm falling for you again. Maybe I never actually stopped, but these past few weeks, getting to know who you've become, seeing you with Emma, being around you, I'm falling hard, and it's terrifying because I don't want to mess this up again. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Olivia, I'm terrified too. But I'm also tired of being afraid. I'm tired of protecting myself from being hurt when the person I want is right there, wanting me back. So what do? We take the leap. We choose this. We choose each other and figure out the rest as we go. What about our daughters? We include them when it feels right. We introduce this gradually. We make sure they understand that no matter what happens between us, our priority is their well-being. You've thought about this. I've thought about little else for weeks. Olivia's laugh was watery, like she was crying and smiling simultaneously. I love you, Daniel Brooks. I never stopped loving you, and I'm done pretending I did. The words hit him like a physical force. I love you too. I'm so angry with you still, and I'm scared, and I don't know how this all works out, but I love you. I always have. Even after everything. Even after everything. They stayed on the phone for another 30 minutes, talking about nothing and everything, reluctant to break the connection. Finally, practical reality intervened. I really need to relieve my babysitter, Daniel said reluctantly. And I need to get home to Sophia, Tomorrow? Can I see you tomorrow? Yes, bring Emma. We can all have lunch together. Start figuring out how this works as a family. The word family sent warmth through Daniel's chest. I'd like that. After they hung up, Daniel sat in his truck in the parking lot, processing the magnitude of what had just happened. He told Olivia he loved her. She'd said it back. They were choosing each other again, choosing to build something new from the rubble of what had been destroyed. When he got home, Michelle took one look at his face and grinned. Good date? Really good date. I'm happy for you, Daniel. You deserve this. After she left, Daniel checked on Emma, who was sound asleep with a book about dolphins open on her chest. He closed the book gently, turned off her light, and stood in her doorway watching her breathe. Whatever happened next, Emma would be okay. He would make sure of it. But for the first time in years, Daniel allowed himself to believe that he could be okay too. That he could have more than just survival and responsibility. That he could have love and partnership and a future that looked different from the solitary path he'd been walking. His phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. A photo of Sophia asleep, curled up with a stuffed elephant that looked remarkably similar to Emma's. She asked if Emma could be her sister, the message read. I told her we'd have to see, but that Emma would always be her friend. Emma has the same elephant, Daniel texted back. Different color, same brand. She's had it since she was 3. Sophia got hers when I adopted her. It was the first thing she picked out that was truly hers. Daniel looked at the photo again, at this child who'd captured his daughter's heart, who was raised by the woman he loved. A month ago, Olivia's reappearance had felt like a disaster. Now it felt like the missing piece he hadn't known his life was lacking. Tomorrow, he texted. Let's start figuring out what our future looks like. Together, Olivia responded. Let's figure it out together. Daniel fell asleep that night with his phone on the pillow beside him, Olivia's words glowing on the screen, and for the first time in 10 years, he dreamed about a future that included all 4 of them. Emma and Sophia, sisters in everything but biology. Him and Olivia, building something stronger than what they'd lost because it was forged in truth instead of secrets. The past had walked back into his life carrying pain and questions. But maybe, just maybe, it was also carrying the possibility of healing, of forgiveness, of a love that was mature enough to acknowledge its scars and strong enough to build despite them. Saturday morning arrived with Emma bouncing on Daniel's bed at 7 a.m., full of questions about their lunch plans with Sophia and her mother. What should I wear? Should I bring my dolphin book to show Sophia? Can we go to the park after lunch? Do you think Ms. Hayes likes pizza or burgers better? Daniel groaned and pulled a pillow over his face. Em, it's 7 in the morning on a Saturday. But we have important plans. She tugged the pillow away. You look happy, Dad. You're smiling in your sleep. He hadn't realized he was smiling, but Emma was right. Despite the early wake-up call, despite the nerves already building in his stomach about spending the day as a potential family unit, he felt lighter than he had in years. Yeah, sweetheart, I am happy. Because of Ms. Hayes? Daniel pulled Emma down for a hug, buying himself time to find the right words. Because of a lot of things. Because you're amazing. Because I have good friends. And yes, because Ms. Hayes makes me happy too. Good. You deserve to be happy. Emma said it with such serious conviction that Daniel's throat tightened. Where did you hear that? Uncle Jake told Aunt Michelle that you deserve to be happy, and she said you've been sad for too long but didn't know it. I was supposed to be asleep, but I heard them talking. Daniel made a mental note to have words with Jake about eavesdropping 8-year-olds. I haven't been sad. I've had you. You can have me and still be sad, Dad. That's okay. The wisdom in her young voice broke something open in Daniel's chest. He hugged her tighter. You're pretty smart, you know that? I know. Mrs. Peterson says I'm reading at a 5th grade level. They spent the morning in their usual Saturday routine. Pancakes for breakfast, a trip to the hardware store because Daniel needed supplies for a home project, then back to clean up and get ready. Daniel changed his shirt 3 times before Emma declared the blue one made him look nice but not like you're trying too hard. At 11:30, they drove to the park where they'd agreed to meet. Olivia and Sophia were already there, spreading out a blanket near the playground. Sophia spotted them first and came running over. Emma, I brought my new book about whales. Want to see? The girls ran off together, leaving Daniel and Olivia standing by the blanket, suddenly awkward in the bright daylight with their daughters as witnesses. Hi, Olivia said softly. She was wearing jeans and a soft green sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking younger and more relaxed than her usual CEO persona. Hi yourself. Daniel wanted to kiss her, to hold her, to continue what they'd started last night. But this was different. This was them as parents first, as potential partners second. I brought sandwiches, Olivia said, gesturing to the picnic basket. I wasn't sure what Emma liked, so I made a variety. She'll eat anything except pickles. And thank you. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to. Olivia's smile was nervous. I wanted today to feel special, for all of us. They sat on the blanket, watching the girls play on the swings. The park was busy with weekend families, couples pushing strollers, kids running between playground equipment, teenagers throwing frisbees, normal Saturday scenes of normal families doing normal things. Are we really doing this? Olivia asked quietly, building something together. I think we are, if that's what you want. It is. It terrifies me, but it's what I want. She looked at him, her eyes vulnerable. I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for my past to come back and destroy this again. Your father is gone. That threat doesn't exist anymore. I know, but trauma has a way of making you expect disaster, even when logic says you're safe. Daniel understood that more than she knew. He'd spent 3 years expecting Sarah to come back and disrupt Emma's life, despite all evidence that she'd moved on completely. Fear didn't always respond to reason. We'll figure it out, he said, reaching for her hand. Together, that's the difference this time. We're not alone in this. Olivia laced her fingers through his, and they sat like that for a moment, holding hands while their daughters played, taking the first tentative steps toward becoming something more than two separate families occupying the same space. Mom, Dad, come push us! The simultaneous shout from both girls made them both freeze. Emma had called Olivia's attention, but Sophia had called for her dad, and she was looking at Daniel. Daniel's eyes met Olivia's, seeing his own shock reflected there. Sophia, honey, Olivia called, her voice careful. Mr. Brooks isn't... She can call me whatever she's comfortable with, Daniel said quietly. Then, louder. We're coming! They walked to the swings together, and Daniel found himself pushing Sophia while Olivia pushed Emma, and the natural swap felt both strange and right. The girls shrieked with delight, demanding to go higher, and for a few minutes Daniel let himself exist in the simple joy of the moment without overthinking what it meant. When the girls finally tired of the swings and ran off to the jungle gym, Olivia turned to Daniel with tears in her eyes. She's never done that before. Called anyone dad. She might not have meant it that way. Kids sometimes... She meant it. I know my daughter. Olivia wiped at her eyes. Is that okay? I know it's fast and complicated and it's okay. Daniel meant it. If that's what feels natural to her, I can handle it. But Olivia, we need to have a real conversation with them soon about what we are to each other, what we're becoming. They're picking up on everything. You're right. Maybe after lunch? They called the girls over and spread out the food. Olivia had packed an impressive spread. Sandwiches, fruit, cookies, juice boxes. The girls chattered excitedly about school and books and a science fair project Emma wanted to do on ocean currents. Sophia could help you, Olivia suggested. She knows a lot about marine biology. Really? Emma's eyes lit up. Could we work on it together? If that's okay with your dad. Both girls turned to Daniel with identical, hopeful expressions. He laughed. I think that would be great. But that's a project for partners, which means you'd be spending a lot of time together. We want to spend a lot of time together, Sophia said, matter-of-factly. We're best friends now. Already? Olivia asked, smiling. Already, both girls confirmed. After lunch, while the girls were occupied with the jungle gym again, Daniel and Olivia packed up the picnic supplies. I have something I need to tell you, Olivia said, her voice tight. Something I should have mentioned before, but I was afraid. Daniel's stomach dropped. What is it? Marcus, my father. He left something behind, a trust fund, money he'd apparently hidden away before his first arrest. It came to me and my mother when he died, and it's substantial. Okay? And I don't want you to think that's why I came back here, or that I'm trying to buy my way back into your life. The money doesn't change who I am or what I did. Daniel studied her anxious expression. I never thought that. Olivia, I know you. You're not someone who uses money to manipulate people. But I have so much of it now. Between the trust fund and my salary, I could buy Emma everything she could possibly want. I could make your life easier in 100 different ways. And I'm terrified you'll think that's what I'm trying to do, make up for the past with money. Is that what you're trying to do? No, I just want to help, to be part of your lives. But I don't want my resources to create an imbalance between us. Daniel set down this basket he was holding. Here's what I think. We use your resources however makes sense for our family. If that means Sophia gets to take ballet classes and Emma wants to join too, but I can't afford it, you help. If we take a vacation together and you can afford a nicer place, we don't stay somewhere cheaper just to make me feel less inadequate. We act like partners, not like competitors. Our family, Olivia repeated softly. You said our family. I did, because that's what we're building, isn't it? She kissed him then, quick and sweet, in full view of anyone who cared to look. When they broke apart, both girls were watching from the jungle gym with huge grins. They're watching, Daniel said. I know. Maybe it's time to make this official. They called the girls over. Emma and Sophia came running, sensing something important was about to happen. We need to talk to you both about something, Olivia started, then looked at Daniel for support. He took over. You both know that Ms. Hayes and I knew each other a long time ago, right? Both girls nodded. Well, we were very close. We were planning to get married, actually, but some things happened that meant we couldn't be together anymore, and we both went on to have different lives. But now you found each other again, Emma said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Yes. And we've realized that we still care about each other very much. So we've decided we want to try being together again, as a couple. Does that mean you're boyfriend and girlfriend? Sophia asked. Yes, Olivia said. It does. And what does that mean for us? Emma's question was more cautious, and Daniel heard the fear underneath. She'd already lost one mother. She was afraid of losing another. Daniel knelt down to Emma's eye level. It means that no matter what happens between Ms. Hayes and me, you and Sophia will always be friends. I promise you that. Our relationship doesn't change yours with Sophia. But what if you fight and break up? Then it would be weird. That's a fair concern, Olivia said, kneeling beside Daniel. And we can't promise that won't happen. But what we can promise is that we'll always put you two first. Your friendship, your happiness, your stability, those things matter more than anything else. Sophia looked thoughtful. Emma's dad is nice. I like when he pushes me on the swings. And your mom makes really good sandwiches, Emma added. And she's smart. The adults exchanged glances, trying not to laugh at the 8-year-old criteria for relationship approval. So you're both okay with this? Daniel asked. Can Sophia come over more? Emma asked. Can I call Daniel Dad if I want to? Sophia asked simultaneously. The question hit Daniel like a physical force. He looked at Olivia, who had tears streaming down her face. Sophia, honey, that's a really big thing to ask, Olivia said gently. Mr. Brooks might not be comfortable. I'm comfortable with it, Daniel heard himself say. If that's what you want, Sophia, and if your mom is okay with it, then yes, you can call me Dad. Sophia launched herself at Daniel, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Over her head, Daniel met Olivia's tear-filled gaze. This was happening so fast, moving from cautious dating to instant family in the span of a month. But looking at Sophia's joyful face, feeling Emma's hand slip into his as she joined the hug, Daniel couldn't find it in himself to pump the brakes. Does this mean Sophia's my sister now? Emma asked. Not officially, Olivia said, but you can be sisters in your hearts. Family isn't always about paperwork. Cool, I always wanted a sister. The girls ran off again, already deep in conversation about what being sisters meant. Daniel and Olivia stood, and she fell against him, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Hey, it's okay, he murmured, holding her close. She's never had a father figure. Never. And she just claimed you like it was the most natural thing in the world. Because to her, it is natural. Kids don't overthink these things like we do. I'm scared we're moving too fast, that we're going to crash and burn and hurt them. Daniel tilted her face up to meet his eyes. We might. There's no guarantee this works out perfectly. But Olivia, I'd rather try and fail than spend the rest of my life wondering what we could have built together. She kissed him, deeper this time, pouring 10 years of regret and hope and love into the contact. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. "Move in with me," he said. Olivia pulled back, shocked. "What? Not tomorrow, not next week, but soon. Move in with me. Let's build this family together under one roof instead of splitting time between two houses." "Daniel, that's crazy, fast, probably stupid." He smiled. "Yeah, but I'm tired of being cautious. I'm tired of protecting myself from being hurt. I want you in my life fully, not as a weekend visitor or a weekly coffee date. I want to wake up next to you and fall asleep holding you and figure out how to parent together in real time. My house is bigger, better neighborhood, better schools. Then I'll move in with you." "You'd do that? Leave your house? For you? For this?" "Yes, in a heartbeat." Olivia laughed through her tears. "You're insane. We've been back in each other's lives for a month. We've been dating for exactly 1 day." "I know." "So is that a no?" She looked over at the girls who were building something in the sandbox, their heads bent together in concentration. When she looked back at Daniel, her eyes were clear. "Ask me again in 2 weeks. If we survive 2 weeks of actual dating without killing each other, ask me again." "Deal." They spent the rest of the afternoon at the park, and to anyone watching, they probably looked like any other blended family navigating a Saturday together. But Daniel felt the magnitude of what was shifting. He was falling in love with Olivia all over again, but this time it was different. This time they were adults who'd been broken and rebuilt, who knew the cost of loss and the value of honesty. That evening, after dropping Olivia and Sophia off at their house, a beautiful colonial in the neighborhood Daniel had mentioned with better schools, he and Emma drove home in comfortable silence. "Dad?" Emma said as he was tucking her in. "Are you happy?" "Very happy, sweetheart." "Me too. I really like Sophia, and her mom is nice." "I'm glad." "Do you love her, Ms. Hayes?" Daniel could have deflected, could have told Emma she was too young for such conversations, but she deserved honesty. "Yes, I do." "Did you love her before, when you were young?" "Very much." "And she left you and you were sad?" "Yes." Emma processed this, her young face serious. "But she came back, and you're not sad anymore." "No, I'm not sad anymore." "Good. Because you're a really good dad and you deserve to be happy. That's what Aunt Michelle says." Daniel kissed her forehead. "You're pretty wise for 8 years old." "I know. Good night, Dad." "Good night, Em." Downstairs, Daniel poured himself a beer and sat on the back porch, looking up at the stars. His phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Sophia won't stop talking about today. She asked if you could read her a bedtime story sometime. I'd love that." Emma asked if I love you. I told her yes. "What did she say?" "That I deserve to be happy." "She's very wise. So is Sophia. She said she's glad she has a dad now because Emma's dad is the best." Daniel's vision blurred. "I don't know how I got so lucky. To get a second chance with you and to gain Sophia in the process. We're the lucky ones. You didn't have to let us in. You could have kept your distance, protected yourself. I tried that for 10 years. I'm done protecting myself from the best thing that ever happened to me." They texted back and forth for another hour, sharing details about their daughters, making plans for the coming week, slowly weaving their separate lives into something unified. The 2 weeks Daniel had promised to wait before proposing they move in together passed in a blur of family dinners, playground visits, and late-night phone calls after the girls were asleep. They introduced their relationship to their wider circles. Jake and Michelle were thrilled, Olivia's mother was cautiously optimistic, and the girls' teachers at Jefferson Elementary adjusted to seeing them function as a family unit. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The first real fight came on a Tuesday night, 2 weeks and 3 days after the park conversation. Daniel had picked up both girls from school, a new arrangement they were testing, and brought them back to his house for homework and dinner. Olivia was supposed to join them after a late meeting, but at 6 o'clock she called to say the meeting was running long. "How long?" Daniel asked, trying to keep the frustration from his voice. He'd planned dinner around her arrival time. "Maybe another hour?" "I'm sorry, there's a crisis with the Henderson account, and it's fine. We'll eat without you." "Daniel, don't be like that." "Like what?" "Understanding?" "Because I am understanding. I'm also a single parent who just adjusted his entire evening around a plan you're now changing. I didn't plan for this meeting to run over. I know, but Olivia, this is the third time this week. The girls are asking questions. Sophia's asking why you're not here. The silence on the other end was heavy. I'm doing my best to balance everything. I know you are. But we agreed. We agreed to try. We didn't agree that I'd stop being a CEO or that my job would suddenly become less demanding. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Daniel looked at the two girls doing homework at his kitchen table, both of them periodically glancing toward the door as if Olivia might appear. I'm saying that if we're going to do this, really do this, we need to figure out how to make both our lives fit together. And right now it feels like I'm doing all the adjusting. That's not fair. I'm trying. I know you're trying. I'm just saying it's hard. Another long pause. I'll be there in an hour. I'll wrap this up. Olivia, but she'd already hung up. Daniel stared at his phone, frustration and guilt warring in his chest. He'd known dating a CEO would come with challenges, but experiencing it was different from theorizing about it. Is Mom okay? Sophia asked quietly. She'd started calling Olivia Mom and Daniel Dad interchangeably, and each time it made his heart simultaneously full and aching. She's fine, honey. Just work stuff. She'll be here soon. When Olivia finally arrived 90 minutes later, dinner was over and the girls were watching a movie in the living room. She looked exhausted, her suit rumpled, dark circles under her eyes. I'm sorry, she said immediately. You were right. I'm not balancing this well. Daniel pulled her into a hug. I shouldn't have snapped at you. I know your job is demanding. But you weren't wrong. I need to figure out how to be present for this family we're building. I can't keep letting work take over everything. They stood in his kitchen, holding each other, and Daniel felt the weight of what they were attempting. Blending two households, two careers, two daughters, two people with enough baggage between them to fill a freight car. We're going to fight, he said quietly. We're going to disagree about schedules and priorities and how to handle things. But Olivia, we have to promise each other we'll work through it, not run when it gets hard. I promise, I'm not running again, ever. She pulled back to meet his eyes. But Daniel, I need you to understand something. My job isn't just a paycheck. It's part of who I am. I worked hard to get here, and I'm not willing to give it up. I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking you to find a balance, to make us a priority, too. I can do that. I will do that. She kissed him, and in that kiss was apology and promise and determination. The girls looked over from the movie and smiled before returning their attention to the screen. This was real life, not the romantic fantasy of the park or the intensity of their rekindled passion. This was two complicated people with demanding lives trying to build something sustainable, and Daniel was all in. The next morning, Olivia sent him a calendar invite. He opened it to find she'd blocked off every evening from 5 to 8 as family time non-negotiable. I talked to my assistant, her text read. No meetings during family hours unless it's literally the company burning down. And even then, I'll bring a fire extinguisher home. Daniel laughed and showed the message to Emma over breakfast. Miss Hayes is making time for us. Good. Sophia needs her mom at dinner. She tells better stories than you do. Ouch. Thanks, kid. That Saturday, exactly 2 weeks after their conversation at the park, Daniel made good on his promise. He invited Olivia to his place while both girls were at a birthday party, their first social event as acknowledged sisters, which had delighted them both. Soaked it, he said when Olivia arrived. It's been 2 weeks. It has. We survived, barely, but we did. We had our first real fight and came out stronger. That's got to count for something. Daniel took her hand. Move in with me. Or let me move in with you. Let's make this official. Not just dating, not just two parents coordinating schedules. A real family. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. Your house or mine? Yours. You were right. Better neighborhood, better schools. And honestly, your house is gorgeous, and mine is kind of falling apart. Your house has character, but yes, mine has more space. She paused. Are you sure about this? It's still so fast. I've never been more sure of anything, except maybe Emma. You and her are the only two certain things in my life. And Sophia. Don't forget Sophia. I could never forget Sophia. She's mine now, too. Olivia kissed him, deep and sure.
Okay, yes, let's do this. Let's build our family together. When? Next month. That gives us time to tell the girls properly, to plan the logistics, to make sure we're really ready.
1 month, Daniel agreed, and then we start our life together. For real this time. They spent the rest of the afternoon planning, talking through logistics and schedules, and how to blend two households worth of furniture and belongings. When the girls returned from the party, bubbling over with stories and sugar, Daniel and Olivia sat them down for another family meeting. We have some news, Olivia started. Both girls' eyes went wide. Daniel and I have decided that we want to all live together, in one house, as a family. Really? Emma and Sophia shrieked simultaneously. Really, Daniel confirmed. In about a month, your dad and Emma are going to move into our house. We'll all be together. The girls launched themselves at both adults, squealing with delight. In the chaos of hugs and excited questions about bedrooms and who would sleep where, Daniel caught Olivia's eye. This was it. They were really doing this. 10 years after everything fell apart, they were choosing each other again. But this time, they weren't naive 22-year-olds. They were battle-scarred adults who knew the cost of love and the value of honesty. And somehow, that made it even more precious. The month before the move passed in a whirlwind of packing boxes, furniture decisions, and late-night conversations about everything from whose coffee maker to keep to how they'd handle discipline when the girls inevitably pushed boundaries. But 3 days before the scheduled move, reality delivered a complication neither of them had anticipated. Daniel was at the construction site when his phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the screen, a name he hadn't seen in over 2 years. His heart stopped. Hello? Daniel, it's Sarah. Her voice was tentative, uncertain. I know this is out of the blue, but I need to talk to you about Emma. Every protective instinct Daniel possessed roared to life. What about Emma? Can we meet? Today? I'm in town, and I'd rather do this in person. Daniel's mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Where are you? There's a coffee shop on 5th Street, Marco's. Can you meet me there in an hour? He should have said no. Should have demanded she explain over the phone, but the mention of Emma overrode everything else. I'll be there. He called Olivia immediately. She was in a board meeting, but answered anyway when she saw his repeated calls. What's wrong? Sarah called. She wants to meet. She said it's about Emma. The silence on Olivia's end was heavy. What does she want? I don't know, but Olivia, I'm terrified. What if she wants her back? What if she's changed her mind about being a mother? Then we'll deal with it, together. Do you want me there? No, I need to handle this myself. But can you pick up Emma from school? I don't want her going to Jake's if I don't know what's happening yet. Of course. Call me the second you know anything. Daniel drove to Marco's with his hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Sarah had given up all parental rights when Emma was 6 months old. She'd signed papers, walked away clean. She couldn't just reappear and upend their lives. Could she? Sarah was already seated when Daniel arrived. She'd changed, thinner, harder somehow, though she couldn't be more than 30. She stood when she saw him, her smile nervous. Daniel, thank you for meeting me. What do you want, Sarah? She flinched at his tone. Can we sit? They sat. Daniel didn't order anything. He just waited, every muscle tense. I owe you an apology, Sarah started. For leaving the way I did. For abandoning Emma. For making you raise her alone. Is that what this is? You came back to apologize? Partly, but also... She twisted her hands together. I've been in therapy, working through a lot of issues, and I've realized that running away from Emma was the biggest mistake of my life. Daniel's blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to be part of her life again, not full custody, she added quickly, seeing his expression. I know I don't deserve that, but maybe visits? A chance to know my daughter? No. The word came out flat, final. Daniel, you signed away your rights. You left when she was 6 months old. You've been gone for over 2 years. You don't get to waltz back in because therapy made you feel guilty. I'm her mother. You were her mother. I've been her parent, me. Every night waking up with nightmares, every fever, every first, every scraped knee and broken toy and bedtime story. That was all me. You don't get to claim her now. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I know I don't deserve anything. But Daniel, doesn't Emma deserve to know her biological mother? Don't I deserve a chance to make amends? What you deserve is irrelevant. This is about what's best for Emma, and having someone who abandoned her suddenly reappear is not what's best. You're angry. I understand that. I'm not angry. I'm protective. There's a difference. Daniel leaned forward. Emma is happy. She's thriving. She has a stable life with people who love her unconditionally. I'm not letting you disrupt that because you've suddenly decided you want to play mother. What if I told you I'm getting married, that I have a stable home now, a good job, a partner who wants to help me be a better person? I'd say congratulations, but it doesn't change anything. Sarah pulled out her phone, showed him photos. This is Marcus. He's a counselor. He's been helping me understand why I ran from responsibility, and he's encouraged me to try to make things right. Daniel looked at the photos. Sarah with a kind-looking man, both of them smiling. In another life, he might have been happy for her. In this life, all he could think about was protecting his daughter. I'm glad you found help, genuinely, but Emma doesn't need you confusing her life right now. She's finally asked me about you, and we've worked through it together. She's accepted that some people aren't ready to be parents. That's healthy closure. Closure? Sarah's voice rose. She's 8 years old. She has a whole life ahead of her. What happens when she's older and asks why I never tried to come back? When she wonders if I ever loved her? I'll tell her the truth. That you weren't ready to be a mother, and that was hard, but it wasn't her fault. I'll tell her you made a choice that let me give her the stable life she deserved. Please, Daniel. I'm not asking for much. Just a chance to know her. To let her know me. Daniel stood. My answer is no. You gave up that right when you signed the papers. Emma has a family now, a real family, and I won't let you disrupt that. I could fight this. Get a lawyer. Then get one. But Sarah, you legally terminated your rights. No judge is going to give you visitation when you voluntarily abandoned your child. All you'll do is waste money and traumatize Emma with a custody battle. He walked out before she could respond, his hand shaking with adrenaline. In his truck, he called Olivia. How bad? She answered. She wants back in Emma's life, says she's in therapy, getting married, wants to make amends. What did you tell her? No, absolutely not. Olivia, I can't let her do this. Emma is finally stable, finally happy. We're building this beautiful family together, and Sarah wants to crash in with her guilt and her therapy revelations. Come home. We'll figure this out together. Your place or mine? Mine. I already have Emma here. She's doing homework with Sophia. Daniel drove to Olivia's house, soon to be their house, with his mind spinning. When he arrived, Olivia met him at the door. The girls are upstairs. Talk to me. He told her everything. Sarah's apologies, her therapy, her new relationship, her request for visitation. Olivia listened without interrupting, her hand in his, grounding him. What are you afraid of? She asked when he finished. That she'll hurt Emma. That she'll be in her life for 6 months and then disappear again when it gets hard. That Emma will feel abandoned all over again. Or? What? What else are you afraid of? Daniel looked at Olivia, at her knowing eyes, and felt the truth crack open. That Emma will want her. That Sarah will come back and Emma will choose her biological mother over the life we've built. That's not going to happen. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because Emma knows who her real parent is. It's you, Daniel. You're the one who's been there for everything. Sarah is just biology. Biology matters. Not as much as presence. Not as much as love. Olivia cupped his face. But here's what I think you should do. Don't make this decision in anger. Take some time. Talk to a lawyer about what Sarah's rights actually are. And then, if you decide to let her have supervised visits, make it on your terms. When Emma's ready, when you're ready. You think I should let her see Emma? I think you should consider it. Not because Sarah deserves it, but because Emma might want it someday. And if that day comes, it'll be easier if there's already been some contact, some foundation. Daniel pulled away, pacing Olivia's living room. I can't believe this is happening now, right when everything is finally coming together. Maybe the timing is actually perfect. We handle this together. Show Emma what it looks like when parents work as a team, even when things are hard. Before Daniel could respond, Emma appeared at the top of the stairs. Dad, are you okay? You seem upset.
He forced a smile. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just had a long day at work. Emma came down the stairs, her eyes too perceptive. You're lying. You have your worried face. Olivia caught Daniel's eye, a silent question. He nodded slightly. They'd agreed to always be honest with the girls, and hiding this felt wrong. Come sit with me, Em. Daniel sat on the couch, and Emma curled up beside him. I need to tell you something, and it might be confusing. Okay. Your birth mother, Sarah, contacted me today. She wants to meet you. Emma's eyes went wide. My mom? The one who left? Yes. She says she's sorry for leaving and wants a chance to know you. Oh. Emma processed this, her young face serious. What did you tell her? I told her no. That you have a good life, and I didn't want her disrupting it. But what if I want to meet her? The question hit Daniel like a punch. Do you? Emma shrugged, her 8-year-old uncertainty breaking his heart. I don't know, maybe. I always wondered what she looked like, if I look like her. Olivia spoke gently. Emma, whatever you decide, we'll support you. You don't have to meet her if you don't want to. But if you do want to, we'll make sure it happens in a way that feels safe. Would she leave again? I don't know, honey, Daniel said honestly. She might. People don't always keep their promises. Like she didn't keep her promise to be my mom? Exactly like that. Emma leaned against Daniel. I think I want to meet her, just once, to see if she's sorry, and to tell her that I'm okay without her. Pride and fear warred in Daniel's chest. His 8-year-old daughter wanted to face the woman who'd abandoned her, wanted to claim her own narrative. How could he deny her that? Okay, we'll set something up. But Emma, I need you to understand something. No matter what happens with Sarah, nothing changes between us. You're my daughter. That's forever. I know, Dad. You're the one who stayed. The simple statement made Daniel's eyes burn. Yeah, sweetheart, I stayed. That evening, after Emma and Sophia were in bed, Daniel and Olivia sat in her kitchen planning. He'd called Sarah and agreed to one supervised meeting at a neutral location. Sarah had cried with gratitude, promised she'd follow any guidelines he set. I can't believe I'm doing this, Daniel said, accepting the wine Olivia poured. You're doing it because you're a good father who puts Emma's needs first. Or I'm an idiot who's letting the woman who abandoned my daughter back into our lives. You're not an idiot, you're brave. Olivia sat beside him. And Daniel, I'm proud of you. This can't be easy. Nothing about being a parent is easy. But this feels like tempting fate. We'll handle it, together. The meeting was set for the following Saturday at a family restaurant with a play area. Neutral, public, easy to leave if things went badly. Daniel brought Jake for moral support, while Olivia stayed home with Sophia to give Emma space. Sarah arrived early, looking nervous. She'd dressed carefully, not too fancy, not too casual, and her eyes filled with tears the moment she saw Emma. Hi, Emma. I'm Sarah. Emma, to her credit, was remarkably composed. Hi. You look different than I imagined. What did you imagine? I don't know. Taller, maybe? They sat at a booth, Daniel protectively close to Emma, Jake at the next table giving them space but ready to intervene. Sarah pulled out a small photo album. I made this for you, pictures of me when I was your age. I thought maybe you'd want to see. Emma flipped through the album, and Daniel watched her face for signs of distress, but she just looked curious, comparing features. We have the same nose, Emma observed. We do. And the same hands. See? Sarah held up her hand, and Emma matched it. Why did you leave me? The blunt question made Sarah flinch. I was scared. I was 27, but I felt about 16. I didn't know how to be a mother, and I panicked. But Dad figured it out. Your dad is a much better person than me. He stayed when things got hard. I ran. Are you going to run again? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I don't want to. But Emma, I also don't want to promise you things I might not be able to keep. I'm trying really hard to be better, but I'm still learning. Emma nodded like this made perfect sense to her. Dad says people don't always keep promises, but he does. He always keeps his promises to me. He's a good dad. The best dad. Emma looked at Daniel. Can I talk to Sarah alone for a minute?
Daniel's protective instincts screamed no, but he forced himself to nod. I'll be right over there with Uncle Jake. You call me if you need me, okay? Okay. Daniel moved to Jake's table, watching his daughter talk quietly with her biological mother. Jake put a hand on his shoulder. You're doing the right thing. Am I? Because it feels like I'm letting a bomb into our lives. You're letting Emma have agency. That's different. After 15 minutes, Emma waved Daniel back over. Sarah was crying quietly, and Emma looked thoughtful. We're done, Emma announced. Thank you for meeting me, Sarah. I'm glad I look like you, but I already have a family. Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. I understand. Emma, can I ask you something? Okay. Can I write to you sometimes? Just letters telling you about my life? You don't have to write back if you don't want to. Emma looked at Daniel. Can she? If you want her to, yes. Okay, you can write me letters. But Sarah, I want you to know something. What's that? I'm happy. I have a dad who loves me and a new sister and a new mom soon. So you don't have to feel guilty anymore. I turned out okay without you. The words were delivered with such simple honesty that even Jake had tears in his eyes. Sarah broke down completely, and Emma, with the natural compassion of children, patted her hand. It's okay. Dad says sometimes things work out differently than we plan, but that doesn't mean they work out wrong. In the car on the way home, Emma was quiet. Daniel let her process, not pushing for conversation. Finally, she spoke. Dad? Thank you for letting me meet her. Of course, Em. Did it help? Yeah, I don't wonder anymore. She's just a person who wasn't ready to be a mom. That's sad for her, but it's okay for me. You're very wise, you know that? I know. Everyone tells me. When they got home, to Olivia's house, because the move had happened while they were gone, Jake and Michelle orchestrating the final boxes, Emma ran inside to tell Sophia everything. Daniel found Olivia in the kitchen, and she looked up anxiously. How did it go? Better than I feared, worse than I hoped, but Em handled it beautifully. She told Sarah she was happy and didn't need her to feel guilty anymore. Oh, Daniel, Olivia wrapped her arms around him. That's incredibly mature. I know. When did my daughter become so emotionally intelligent? Probably from watching her father navigate impossible situations with grace. They stood in their kitchen now, in their house, the life they were building together, and Daniel felt something shift. The last piece of his old life had been addressed. Sarah had been faced and handled. Emma had claimed her own narrative, and now they could truly move forward. That night, the four of them sat in the living room of Olivia's house, which was rapidly becoming their house. Emma and Sophia were sprawled on the floor with markers and paper, designing their shared bedroom exactly how they wanted it. I want my side to be blue, Sophia said. And mine purple, Emma added. But we share the bookshelf in the middle. Obviously. We need room for all our books. Daniel watched them, marveling at how naturally they'd fallen into being sisters. Olivia leaned against him on the couch, her hand in his. We're really doing this, she murmured. Building a family from scratch. Not from scratch, from pieces we thought were broken beyond repair. Maybe that's better. We know how to fix things now. 2 months later, on a crisp November morning, Daniel woke up in Olivia's bed, their bed, to the sound of the girls arguing good-naturedly about who got to use the bathroom first. Olivia was already up, probably making her famous blueberry pancakes that had become a Sunday tradition. He padded downstairs to find her in the kitchen, still in her pajamas, flour on her nose. She looked up and smiled. Good morning. Good morning yourself. He kissed her, tasting maple syrup. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Too excited. Today was the day. They'd planned it for weeks, kept it secret from the girls, coordinated with Jake and Michelle and Olivia's mother. Today they were making it official. The girls came thundering down the stairs, still arguing. Dad, tell Sophia that Sunday is my bathroom morning. Emma, we share everything now. That includes bathrooms. Actually, Olivia interrupted, both of you need to get ready quickly. We have somewhere special to go. Where? Both girls asked simultaneously. It's a surprise. An hour later, they pulled up to the courthouse. The girls looked confused until Olivia explained. Daniel and I have been talking. We want to make our family official. Not just living together, but legally united. So today, we're getting married. You're getting married? The girls screamed in unison. Today? Emma added. Right now, Daniel confirmed. If that's okay with you both. Are you kidding? This is the best day ever. Sophia hugged them both. Emma was quieter. Does this mean Olivia will be my real mom? Olivia knelt down to Emma's level. Only if you want me to be. I would never try to replace Sarah or anyone else. But if you'd like to call me Mom, I would be honored. Can I think about it? Of course, sweetheart. Take all the time you need. Inside the courthouse, Jake and Michelle were waiting with Olivia's mother, who'd flown in the night before. The ceremony was simple, just the judge and their small family, but it was perfect. Daniel had written his vows longhand, his construction-calloused hands shaking slightly as he read them. Olivia, 10 years ago, I thought I'd lost you forever. I built a life from the ruins of that loss, and I'm proud of that life. But having you back, building something new together, has shown me that sometimes the best things require being broken first. You're my first love and my last love, and I promise to choose you every day for the rest of our lives. Olivia's vows were equally simple and profound. Daniel, I made a mistake 10 years ago that cost us everything. I've spent a decade paying for that mistake. But standing here today with our daughters watching, I realized that maybe that decade wasn't lost. It was preparation. We needed to become the people who could build this kind of love, the real, deep, tested kind. I promise to never hide from you again, to choose courage over fear, and to build our future together one honest conversation at a time. The judge pronounced them married, and the girls cheered. Emma and Sophia threw wildflowers they'd picked that morning, another surprise they'd coordinated with Michelle. At the celebration lunch afterward, Daniel watched his family. His wife, still so strange and wonderful to think of Olivia that way. His daughters, both of them, because Sophia was his as much as Emma was. His best friends. Olivia's mother, who'd pulled him aside earlier to thank him for giving her daughter a second chance. Jake raised his glass. To Daniel and Olivia, to proof that some love stories don't end when they're supposed to. They just take intermission until everyone's ready for Act 2. To second chances, Michelle added. To family, Olivia's mother said. Daniel looked at Olivia, seeing in her eyes the reflection of everything they'd overcome. The pain of their first ending, the decade apart, the courage it took to try again, the decision to choose love over fear. To us, he said quietly, just for her. To us, she echoed. That evening, after the girls were asleep in their shared bedroom, Daniel and Olivia stood on the back deck of their house, looking up at the stars. Did you ever imagine we'd end up here? Olivia asked. Never. When you left, I thought that was it. End of story. But it wasn't. No, it was just the end of chapter 1. Daniel pulled her close. We get to write the rest together now. No more secrets. No more running. No more wondering what if. Just this, us, our family, our future. Olivia turned in his arms, her face illuminated by the porch light. I love you, Daniel Brooks. Thank you for not giving up on us. I love you too, Olivia Brooks. He smiled at her new name. Thank you for coming back. They kissed under the stars, and if there was symbolism in the gesture, two people who'd lost each other finding their way back through darkness to light, neither of them mentioned it. They just held each other, two imperfect people who'd learned that love wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing to stay, even when leaving would be easier. About building something real from the broken pieces. About believing that sometimes the best endings are actually new beginnings in disguise. Inside the house, Emma had woken up and padded to Sophia's side of the room. Are you awake? Yeah, too excited to sleep. Me too. Sophia? Yeah? I think I'm going to call Olivia Mom. Not to replace Sarah, but because she acts like a mom. She stayed. I think she'd like that. I'm going to keep calling your dad Dad. He makes me feel safe. He makes everyone feel safe. That's just how he is. The girls fell asleep holding hands across the space between their beds, and when Daniel checked on them later, he took a photo. This moment. This family. This impossible, beautiful reality they'd created. In bed that night, Olivia curled against Daniel's side. Do you think we would have made it work back then?
if my father hadn't intervened? I used to wonder that constantly. Now I think it doesn't matter. We weren't ready then. We are now. Because we were broken first. Because we learned what matters. Back then, we were in love with the idea of love. Now we're in love with the reality, messy and complicated and absolutely worth it. When did you become so wise? Single fatherhood teaches you things.
Mostly humility and patience, but occasionally wisdom sneaks in. Olivia laughed softly. I'm so glad Emma exists. Not just because I love her, but because she made you the man you are today. I'm glad Sophia exists for the same reason. She gave you purpose when you were lost. We saved each other, didn't we? Through our daughters, through time, through stubbornness and love, and refusing to settle for half a life. Yeah, we did. They fell asleep together, Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, parents to Emma and Sophia, two people who'd loved and lost and found each other again when the universe decided they were finally ready. The next morning, Emma came down to breakfast and said, "Good morning, Mom," to Olivia for the first time. Olivia's eyes filled with tears as she pulled Emma into a hug. "Good morning, sweetheart." Daniel watched his family, his complete, whole, real family, and felt a peace he'd never experienced before. Not the peace of avoiding pain, but the deeper peace of having survived it and come out stronger. Sarah sent letters occasionally, just as she'd promised. Emma read them and sometimes wrote back brief responses. She was healing her own way, on her own terms, and Daniel was learning to trust her process. The construction company grew. Olivia thrived as CEO. The girls excelled in school and fought like real sisters and loved each other fiercely. They adopted a dog, a golden retriever named Butter, that the girls had begged for relentlessly. Life wasn't perfect. Daniel and Olivia still fought about schedules and priorities. The girls still pushed boundaries. Money was occasionally tight despite Olivia's salary because they'd agreed to keep their finances relatively separate to maintain equality. Family life was messy and complicated and sometimes exhausting. But it was real, it was theirs, and it was everything. On their first anniversary, Daniel took Olivia back to Giuseppe's Deli where they'd had their first lunch reunion. They sat in the same booth, eating the same sandwiches they'd barely touched that first day. "You know what I realized?" Olivia said, watching him across the table. "What's that?" "We never got to have our wedding, the one we planned 10 years ago with the garden church and the small ceremony. We had a courthouse wedding that was perfect." "It was. But Daniel, I want to marry you again, properly this time, with a real ceremony and the girls as our flower girls and all our friends there. I want to make vows in front of everyone, not just a judge and a handful of people." Daniel reached across the table, taking her hand. "Are you proposing to me, Mrs. Brooks?" "I think I am, Mr. Brooks." "Then yes. 1,000 times yes." They planned the ceremony for the following spring, not in the church they'd chosen a decade ago. That felt like trying to recapture the past. Instead, they chose Olivia's backyard, which had become the heart of their family life. Emma and Sophia were indeed flower girls, arguing good-naturedly about who got to throw petals first. Jake was Daniel's best man again, and this time his toast was everything, funny and touching and perfectly capturing their journey. 10 years ago, I watched my best friend's heartbreak, Jake said, raising his glass. I watched him rebuild himself into a father, a businessman, a man who could survive anything, but I also watched him exist rather than live, until she walked back into his life. Olivia, you broke him once, but you also gave him the chance to become the man who could build something even better the second time around. To Daniel and Olivia, to broken things made beautiful. As Daniel kissed his wife under the spring sky, surrounded by their daughters and friends and the life they'd built from ruins, he thought about that night 10 years ago when Olivia had vanished, how he'd thought his life was over, how he'd been so wrong. His life hadn't ended that night. It had just been paused, waiting for both of them to grow into people who could handle this kind of love. The kind that required honesty and courage and the willingness to be vulnerable even after being devastated. The kind of love that was worth every moment of pain it took to find it again. Emma and Sophia ran up to them after the ceremony, flower petals still in their hair. "Can we have cake now?" Sophia asked. "Are you officially married again?" Emma added. "Officially and completely," Olivia confirmed. "Good. Because I really want cake, Emma said, making everyone laugh. As the reception continued around them, Daniel pulled Olivia close. Happy? Deliriously. You? More than I ever imagined possible. Even after everything we went through? Especially after everything we went through, because it made this mean more. They danced under the stars that night, the same stars that had witnessed their first ending and their new beginning. Their daughters danced nearby, giggling and spinning. Their friends celebrated around them. And Daniel Brooks, who'd once thought he'd lost his only chance at true love, held his wife close and knew with absolute certainty that some stories don't end when they seem to. They just transform. They break and rebuild. They teach you that love isn't about perfection or timing or getting it right the first time. It's about choosing each other, again and again, through every season and struggle. It's about building something real from the wreckage. It's about believing that broken things, when mended with honesty and courage, become stronger than they were before. And as Daniel looked around at his family, his wife, his daughters, his friends, he realized that this was the life he was meant to have. Not the one he'd planned at 22, but the one he'd earned through surviving loss and choosing hope over despair. This was home. This was family. This was love in its truest, deepest, most resilient form. And it was absolutely, perfectly, beautifully enough.